I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We all, if you have not seen, we had a student pass and their funeral was today. So if we could just take a moment of silence for him and his family at this time. Thank you. If we could have roll call, Mr. Treasurer, please.
Mrs. Dowdelberg,
Here.
Mr. Bauer,
Here.
Ms. Gray,
Here.
Ms. Kirshner,
Here.
and Ms. Walsh.
Here.
Thank you so much. 5 principles of a cruiser by Mr. Morbizer, please.
Together, we all share 5 principles of our cruiser professional learning community. They are: we focus on learning, we collaborate, we take responsibility, we ask what are the results, we decide what to do next.
Thank you so much, sir. Went a little ahead. Mr. Vice President, if we could have the review of our belief statement and board norms, please.
We believe all cruisers are valuable. We will unconditionally serve, support, and inspire. Therefore, every cruiser will maximize their unique purpose, potential, and power to produce the results they want. As leaders of the district, we will always strive to support the mission and vision of the district, be prepared, informed, and ready for meetings, respect one another as elected representatives of the community, be open-minded, and recognize one another's strengths, the value of diverse perspectives, and mutual commitment to the mission and vision of the district. Allow members to complete their thoughts and statements before others comment. Allow members to be heard and listen to all perspectives with an open mind. Stay focused on the tasks at hand and respectfully redirect each other when needed. Maintain confidentiality and communicate per board policies. Ensure trust and transparency in all dealings. And after a vote is cast, leave meetings united as one voice, no matter the outcome.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vice President. On to our agenda approval. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Gray is first. Mr. Bauer is second. Any comments or questions or anything before we move to roll call? Want to be mindful of all colleagues? All right, hearing none or seeing none. Mr. Treasurer, if we could have roll call, please.
Mrs. Dowdelberger,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Walsh. I'm sorry, Mr. Kirshner,
Aye.
and Mrs. Walsh.
Aye.
All right, agenda passes. Thank you so much. On to public participation. We did not have any. All right. Awesome. On to you, Mr. Superintendent.
Yes, our first topic tonight, which we've allotted about an hour and up to an hour and a half to do, is it's labeled as Portrait of a Cruiser discussion. This has actually been a 2-part thing that we've been working on. It is strategic planning and Portrait of a Cruiser or Portrait of a Graduate, which you've heard some other times. So Mr. Fuji is making his way up, and I'm not going to steal any of his thunder because he's going to take a little bit of time to introduce himself, tell you a little bit about his background and what we've done so far to get to this point, which were two engagement sessions, some surveying, and then he came out and met with the cabinet team today. So I have to tell you, this has been a good experience. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback, and people enjoyed having the chance to have a voice about helping frame the discussion of this district and where we're heading in the future. So again, I don't want to steal too much of his thunder, but Mr. Steve Fuji will be facilitating. He's been our consultant in the strategic planning and Portrait of a Cruiser.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Good evening, Madam President, distinguished members of the board. Thank you for this opportunity to be here with you this evening. I forwarded this presentation on to you, Thursday or Friday of last week. What you will see here actually represents a few amendments to that, as I had the blessing and the privilege of meeting earlier today with the cabinet. So I will make sure you also receive this presentation deck
Steve, they have that. We've updated the online agenda and they have the most recent version
You know,
in their
Mr.
packet.
Superintendent, you astound me with your efficiency, so thank you very much. I just wanted to make sure to make that call out in the event that anyone was concerned. First, let me start out by saying, certainly my condolences. I was unaware that your district had suffered a loss, and I understand that as you look at starting a new school year, kind of thinking of that and prioritizing your families as you do is commendable. So thank you for that chance. And certainly my condolences. In addition, I want to express my gratitude to each of you for your service on this school board. And in that manner, I would share with you about myself. I represent an organization called the Experience Management Institute. You all contracted with us back in February. Actually, I think we wound up getting everything kind of finalized in March, but for two real kind of outcomes during the last school year. The first was the idea of the components of a portrait of a cruiser for a visioning plan where to really anchor some work as you move forward. And the second component is to look at what might be a strategic plan. In that space, Mr. Grube was able to share his superintendent goals in the strategic plan that you all kind of engaged in during a retreat last school year, and you'll see some additional work in that space. So you might wonder, who am I and what experience do I bring to bear in the service of this project or these two projects? And for that, I would share that as the Vice President of Customer Experience for my organization, we are a proud woman-owned organization. I'll share a little bit about Experience Management Institute here shortly. I'm one of two male members of our team. Otherwise, we have some credentials that we'd want to share. In addition to that, I've been a proud educator for more than 20 plus years. Most recently in public education, served in the role of interim superintendent in a neighboring school district here in the state of Ohio. Prior to entering the services in public education, I was a commissioned military officer in the United States Army, served in combat arms as a cavalry armor officer, both overseas and here at home. So I acknowledge the type of service that you all present and advocate for on a daily basis. Finally, another way that I kind of integrate myself in this type of work is today I also serve as a school board member here in a local school district. Was just elected last year to my second term in that space, and today serve as the president of that school board. So come to you with those credentials, come to you with admiration, and come to you in the space and the service of what your treasurer and your superintendent are attempting to do on a daily basis for your students and your community. A little bit more about Experience Management Institute. As I shared, we are a proud woman-owned organization. We do work nationwide extensively with organizations in the way of strategy specifically, both private and public organizations. We focus really on human-centered experience management design, as well as people management, instruction design, and process improvements. A couple of things that we organizationally are very proud of. First of all, we are this will be the third time and final time, but a proud woman-owned business enterprise as identified by the Ohio Department of Development. We are also a veteran-friendly business enterprise identified by, again, the Ohio Department of Development. And finally, we are a certified small business organization certified by the U.S. Small Business Administration. Our third credential that we share is that we are a 2021 Stevie Award winner. We are the Bronze Award winner. We lost out to Amazon and we lost out to FedEx. So we kind of are proud of the fact that we took third to those larger organizations. The other thing, if you Google our name, you'll also find out that we're a Columbus young professional place on the rise and preferred place of employment. That's not on the slide, but I'm kind of proud of that because in a lot of places we don't get to talk about Columbus, Ohio. So I share that with you. Tonight, Superintendent Grube shared, really want to talk to you and get your feedback, your genuine feedback on a couple of things. We've been able to talk now with community members, stakeholders. Two of those stakeholders are actually in the room this evening. Had a chance to work with your administrators, your staff, your students on setting some ideas around your portrait of a cruiser, but really none of those ideas matter as much as the ideas that you might be able to provide to us this evening, because those will also begin to drive the strategic priorities. Superintendent Grube's goals will they will sunset on the 31st as a new contract year will start as the new school year begins to dawn on August 1st. So having your ideas on the strategic priorities for this district as we move forward are absolutely essential. I want to provide for you a little bit of a review around stakeholder feedback and then get your feedback on those strategic priorities. Before I continue, Mr. Superintendent, I believe that's what you've charged me with this evening. I want to check for my understanding on that.
Yes, sir.
And then see from the board if there's other feedback that you would give to me in terms of if this is the right grain size for you to engage in this evening.
I guess I will just add that it's not the goal to have a final product tonight.
No, sir.
This is an additional, or this is one of the steps in the process to really get feedback and focus to make sure that what our community said, what our employees said, that we're headed in the right direction to address these. So yeah, we're not going to wrap up the process tonight, but this is an important step to gather direct feedback from the Board of Education. We had those other community engagements where anybody could come in and they could speak freely. And so this is the next step in that process.
Well said. Thank you very much, Mr. Superintendent. In fact, the fact that you got one draft with your board packet over the weekend and an updated draft today hopefully signifies to you that this is a work in progress and your insights are actually kind of crucial to whatever happens next. Madam President, you said something really interesting as you paused and waited after your first and your second. You said something around wanting to make sure that all board members are seen and heard in that moment. What was that phrase you used?
Just that every colleague had an opportunity to be heard. I didn't see any questions, so just want to give everyone an opportunity.
Yeah, so I'm going to try and steal that and say, hearing no questions, I just want to make sure that each board member feels seen and heard in that space before I move forward. Okay, hearing nothing else. So here's a little bit of where we've been. So here's the beginning of the review process, the roadmap to get us to me being able to be here tonight. Please know that the work tonight actually continues because I have to take your notes this evening and tomorrow and package that back up for the superintendent and his administrative team here. So this process started, like I said, when you all signed a contract, a scope of work with me or with our organization to begin some work. So we wanted to talk about how to align strategic priorities for the district moving forward. Superintendent and Assistant Superintendent Smathers really said that we want to anchor this in our belief and our work around students. So they had some ideas about what that might look like. We met with over 50 stakeholders within the community. Those stakeholders were parents. They were actually students themselves as early as young as 5th grade, staff members, administrators, and educators in the district. So we started to talk about the alignment of priorities and the alignment of student expectations. They had a chance to share kind of what has transpired in the world since the last strategic plan for this district. We then commissioned a survey that went out. We talked about engaging further stakeholder feedback on what they thought in terms of what is going well and what can be improved in the district. We met again just as your school year was ending in May to validate some of these conversations. We wanted to talk about what elements were necessary to be successful in the world today. If we're going to anchor these things in student expectations, what does that mean for us in Groveport? I think this was a really neat opportunity that the board will have this evening to weigh in on things. This isn't what the state of Ohio is saying is necessary from a third grade guarantee. This isn't what we're saying is the best practice in relationship to the art or the science of literacy or the science of math. This is really what are the things that we in Groveport think are most critical for our students to be successful. I need to take your board feedback and hand that data off to your cabinet, your superintendent, because on August 1st, it'll be their charge then to activate this work going into the new year. So the first thing that we started with when we engaged with your stakeholders, an all call went out, an engagement occurred, and we asked the question, in your opinion, what skills, attributes, and habits are necessary to be successful and thrive in today's world? As I've engaged in some of these types of questions nationwide, I'll tell you, if I were to convene a group of educators, I would get one very specific set of answers. If I were to engage a set of parents on this question, I would get a very different set of answers. And then if I would engage business members in your kind of community, folks who have influence and power in terms of hiring and recruiting candidates to this community, I would get a very different set of answers. So there was a lot of power in the fact that we brought these stakeholders together to ask that question. And what kind of came out of it was a set of, and here's the first time I'm going to use this term this evening, a set of competencies. They began to consider what competencies were important here, not what competencies are important in a neighboring district or that the state says. What do we think is important? And there's some backing behind this. In 2017, and this QR code is available for you if you want to take a picture of it. It'll take you to this image. I know this image is difficult to read. The same thing is true for audience members here. If you want to kind of be able to zoom in on these things, you can certainly do that. The QR code, though, takes you to this U.S. Department of Labor industry competency model. This idea is in every workplace around the U.S., it's considered that these areas or competencies are things that are requirements for folks to be able to work. Today, we might consider these things in the human resources world, of which I know I've got some professionals in the audience on, kind of KSAs. What are the knowledge, skills, and abilities necessary to be successful in a particular role? Are there any KSAs that are critical across Groveport, Madison as a community? Specifically, I'm going to point your attention to these bottom three areas. The bottom three areas are personal effectiveness, and let me tell you, I know people have a lot of passion around academic competencies and workplace competencies. So when your community started to address the question of what competencies do we think are important, there was some validity in the fact that this work is also going on kind of parallel, not only in school districts and communities around the country, but also in places of business and other areas in nonprofits, school districts, for-profit organizations around what are the knowledge, skills, and abilities that are necessary. To that end, I just kind of defined for you what knowledge, skills, and abilities are. Sometimes these things get a little bit muddled as we think of them. Knowledge are those pieces of information that's requisite. Think Algebra 2. I must know components of Algebra 2. That would certainly be a knowledge-based idea. The application of what I've learned in Algebra 2 is more of a skill. How do I take information and apply it? And then my ability to persevere and think through information is what would be considered an ability. Yes, ma'am.
I didn't know if we were allowed to like interact or we're just supposed to only listen.
I hope
So
so.
I did not want to interrupt. I wanted to say I think that's very important, especially the topic that you brought up about
Oh,
the algebra piece. Believe it or not, I did not like math, but I love math. It's the weirdest thing. And the job that I do now with data mining and such, I'm always doing math in school. So when you say that the skill set and the critical thinking and the work ethic and trying to problem solve helped me in the workplace, didn't really help me in school at that moment, but it paid off later in life. So I think that's a very good point that you bring up. With that, and I try to drill that down with my children as well. Like, even though it's hard, you may not understand how you will apply it now. I try to give them examples, since I struggled in the same area, on how that will apply later, because I'm also in HR too, so it makes sense.
okay.
Information systems, like how you can take these skills that you learn in school, it will work later. They don't tell you that right now, but I think that's great. It's a great example that you shared this evening.
Well, and critical thinking certainly will be something that comes up here later. Several things that you just said that I kind of want to dovetail on. First of all, of course, any question or any pause, I certainly welcome. This will be a very dry 90 minutes if it's just kind of one directional. The second thing that I might share is the conversation of, and what would the power be of you as a parent talking with your students about critical thinking, that yes, the math content is critical, but how is it that we apply it, and what do we think as we go through if a system supported that same conversation, so that it wasn't just you, not just you as a parent. Parents have all the rights, parents have all the responsibility with the young person, but can we create some sort of formal conversation around the same topics together? And I think that you'll hear that critical thinking and problem solving comes up. So to that end, I mentioned some of the stakeholder feedback. Now, I think this is a double-edged sword in this conversation. I think that we offered the community numerous attempts or numerous opportunities to provide us feedback. What you see here as an N size in terms of that response does not capture your design team of the 50 plus members that engage with us face to face. However, there were 234 folks in your community that did reach out with some insights. And you see here the breakdown of who those people are. We had middle school age students. We had early high school, 9th, 10th graders, 11th and 12th graders. And then we even broke the parents out by elementary age students, middle age students, high school age students, educator or staff members, and community members and business partners. So what I would say is certainly anytime that you put data in front of somebody, you can say, hey, 234 is not a huge end size, of which I'm going to agree in your community. And at the same time, making sure that we provided the opportunity for authentic feedback and the opportunity to weigh in is still of value. So I don't want to minimize it and I don't want to oversell it at the same time. Because what they provided was then the beginning thoughts. They were really asked 3 questions in this. The first one was, as I shared with you, what are the areas that you think a person needs to be successful in today's world? Here is the type of information that they provided. We have communication. Madam President, you already mentioned it. Critical thinking skills, work ethic, empathy and compassion for their fellow person, problem solving, responsibility, adaptability, flexibility, self-discipline, and self-control. I won't go through the rest, but you certainly can see that information there for you. And then what we took the opportunity to do is we tried to validate or we tried to weigh that information based on some conversations here in your community as well. So we then met face to face with a group of stakeholders, same group of stakeholders. And again, actually, I want to give the superintendent a ton of credit here. As we do this work, sometimes we see a drop off a little bit in disengaged communities. Somebody will show up for a first meeting and they'll say, okay, yeah, this looks good, or I trust somebody, or I don't trust it. People have a whole bunch of different ideas on that. And then we don't see the same folks, or we see a different number of folks attend the second meeting. The idea that the stakeholders from first meeting to second meeting remained stagnant or the same was somewhat impressive, at least as a facilitator. Yes, ma'am. Board Member Walsh.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
The first group, 234, that's on this chart. The second group, you said was around 50. Do you have a breakdown of what that makeup was?
You know what? I know that Mr. Smathers does. I do not. I can tell you though, from anecdotally from my observation, we had young parents who had young children in the room. Actually, we have a design team committee member sitting here right now with United Way. I don't know if she wants to speak to maybe. Okay, I don't want to put anybody. You see what I did? I was just going to say I don't want to put anybody on the hot seat on that and have an expectation. Yet I just did it. My apologies. But what I would say to you is anecdotally, we had very young parents with very young students who were kind of sitting there with their tangerines and their applesauce kind of at after a school event, and they were sitting there through kind of the dinner hour waiting to go. We had teachers, we had administrators, and I would just say Board Member Walsh, that I think Mr. Smathers had the attendance roster from both meetings.
Can you send that to us? Oh, he's not here. Jamie, can you have him send that to us? Thank you.
Yes, I'll get that and have it sent to you.
I'm sure he's probably watching from wherever he is tonight, and maybe it'll wind up in your inbox by the end of the evening.
I think he's on the beach, so probably not.
You know, I know Mr. Smathers well enough to say that I'm willing to bet he might be listening. Some quotes that we heard. Oh, yes, ma'am, Miss Walsh. Do you have another one? Oh, I saw your hand in the wave of the pen. My apologies. Oh, on the beach. Yes, ma'am. Well, certainly, I hope he watches this and sees how much love his vacation is getting right now. A couple of the quotes that we heard during that same time, because each participant was also able to fill out a survey in real time of the facilitation of the meeting and provide feedback on that as well. Ultimately, here are some things that your community members said. Here's what we want for our graduates. We want them to be a doer. Like this isn't receive information, fill an empty vessel, go out and, you know, kind of sponge. It's be a doer, do something. It was demonstrate grit. Now this one's interesting to me, but we really want to be able to demonstrate that we're persevering through something, that we care and we can take action. And be confident. a couple of these things that I heard, and again, I'm going to fully acknowledge I cherry picked. It's not as though these 3 comments were themes that came across. I cherry picked comments. But what would be the theme that I would take is that they were all about taking action. The one thing is that your high school diploma, when you walk across the stage and consider yourself a proud graduate or alumnus of this proud district, is that you need to do something with it. So we asked, we asked and saw some alignment between the same things that your community said and what your stakeholders who are having small group conversations with one another said. You can start to see the alignment. One thing that I would draw your attention to, there's probably 2 things here. One is if you look about 2/3 of the way down the page, you see the term honesty and integrity. While that wasn't a highly frequent response from your survey respondents, it was a highly frequent response from your participants on the design team. The same thing would be true for life skills. In fact, 11 out of 11 table groups made up of 4 to 5 folks per table spoke about having, the application. To me, that means the be the doer. That means demonstrating grit. That's the life skill conversation. And the life skills that then your community says at large. I mean, those numbers are almost exactly equal. So thought that was interesting. We then asked those table groups. This was an activity that we did in person, not for your survey respondents. We asked those table groups to now force select. Like if we focus on all these things, we're not focused on anything. What is it, in your opinion, that is really critical for us to consider? So it's a pretty simple activity. Many of you, maybe through various professional responsibilities, have done this sort of thing, where you take 1/3 of the total options and you're forced to kind of select them and put them in your own terms. That led us to this grouping. This is where I'm going to pause and I'm going to really ask for your feedback on 3 questions. And I'm going to give you sentence stems for them, but I'll tell you up front. I like what I see here, whatever that is. That the first sentence stem is I like. The second sentence stem is I wonder. Like, man, have you considered or are you thinking the right thing? And the third sentence stem is what if? What if this were included? This is where truly the kind of dirtiness of an unfinished product to the board is really important. But I have no other way to get your feedback that wouldn't be considered round robining or doing something disrespectful in terms of open meeting rules. I need to kind of get dirty with this in terms of your feedback. So the areas that we started to group then are, and these are very broad bucket areas, I'll own that too. The first one, Madam President, is exactly what you said. Kind of critical thinking, problem solving. I'll tell you, your academic team was very passionate about that as well. We have to increase our performance index. We have to really show the work that our educators do on the daily to improve outcomes for students. Content knowledge must be here. Academic competencies must be present. In addition, communication and collaboration was essential, as was the consideration of a strong work ethic. Now, work ethic and being flexible and adaptable, I also kind of use in the term of what some of your design team participants said in terms of demonstrating grit. And finally, there's this being honest and responsible. This since what we've witnessed over the last 4 years to today, how is it that we consider these things as a community? And then I'm going to use a term, because this was the term that I brought into it based on this work, that the cabinet kind of went with or kind of embraced. And that is this idea of executive functioning. Executive functioning, by definition, is specifically it's setting goals, the ability to set goals for myself. Is that 90 minutes? All right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Executive functioning is the ability to set goals for myself, be able to manage myself through achieving those goals by setting timelines and expectations, and working through challenges that might come up. That broadly is how I'm defining executive functioning and how it captures these things. So here's where I turn to you as a board. You've already seen me, Madam President, take some notes on what you shared in terms of critical thinking. It's my intent to hear from all of you on this is the work that we've undertaken so far since April. This is not a product. It's our current kind of picture that I'm asking for your input on in terms of I like, I wonder, or what if. And certainly in the I wonder or what if, that can be additions that you all think are important or takeaways that maybe haven't been considered or that you might ask me in terms of how we came to these realizations. I'll also say that in this audience, there are several folks who were part of this all the way throughout. So me standing and delivering, if you need some validation of whether or not I'm speaking to you with truth and honesty, certainly there are some folks who can also attest to or affirm anything that I might share. So with that, I wonder what if. Any board member? Actually, no, Mr. Superintendent, is there anything to add to what I've shared so far?
I think this goes without saying, but I'll say it anyhow. When you look at the participation we had with surveys and 2 90-minute meetings, and you get to this point, and it looks like, well, gosh, there's not that much there. But the reality is, when you're looking at large umbrellas of skill sets, this was formed through lots of interaction, activities, and input, and things like that. So, if it appears like there's not much to it, you can't do 100 things well. I think this is kind of the main points that came from those other groups, and so we're looking for affirmation, other ideas, or disagreement. So exactly what you said.
Thank you. Mr. Treasurer, anything to add? Thank you, sir. So, ladies and gentlemen of the board, I wonder for your feedback, what you might have. I wonder what if. Yes, sir.
So I like where this is headed. I think that our students already show flexibility and show adaptability and have proven that they've shown grit and a strong work ethic. But I wonder if we connect that back to what you were talking about, which was the critical thinking skills and the problem solving. What if that would then lead to the executive functioning that we're talking about at the end? So I think focusing on what you were saying earlier with critical thinking and problem solving, that could then lead to the path towards executive functioning.
Yeah, and Mr. Vice President, let me say, I actually agree with you wholeheartedly. I think your teachers are doing there's not something new on here. Right. I would also submit to you that your parents are doing what is on here as well in terms of wanting to support your educators and their students in this space. The conversation is, do we have a framework of understanding about that system-wide? To the discussion earlier of critical thinking and whether I'm good at math, or let's take math out of the conversation, whether I'm good at a particular subject or not. Am I able to apply and persevere through what I'm learning and be that doer? Do we have a common framework for how we talk with parents about that topic, how we support parents in supporting their students on that topic? Do we have a framework when we look at our partner organizations and they come in? We certainly know that our teachers are doing this. I believe that fundamentally. I think you do as well. We also know that our parents are doing this. I believe that. I'm certain that you believe that as well. Do we have a common set of language and expectations around what those things mean? My guess is no. Yeah. And that's not a got you on any topic. That's just, if you like where this is headed, I think that's the next natural iteration through communication.
And then also being able to communicate at various levels. So as you mentioned right now, and Jamie stated, Mr. Superintendent, this is an aerial view of where we are. Then we have to get down to the land nav version. I'm an Army girl too, so get down to the land nav version of what this means. So a parent, when they see Portrait of a Cruiser, one, they know what that means. They understand the definition of that. They understand the pillars or the core competencies or KSAs, as you stated, and it's very clear and defined in a way that they can then help their student. And like you stated, we actually went to COSBA. They had a whole presentation on executive functioning.
I might have known some of the folks in that
room.
Yeah,
I didn't even know, like I knew, but I didn't know. And it was so enlightening. And I'm just like, wow, if we could get our parents trained and give them the support, especially with our students that have a disability, that would be very helpful, because I took a lot from it more of a parent than anything on how I could work better. So I think those things, as he stated, because a lot of our students are critical thinkers, they just don't know it because life has made them that, and they don't know how to give them credit for that. So what we consider, in the corporate world as not being critical thinking, actually they do it every day and every night because they're trying to survive wherever they are.
Thank you very much for that. And not only can I certainly say amen to and hallelujah to kind of what you're sharing, but I also think it does reformat the way that we start to think about what student success can look like. the conversation around our students are good at these things, and where are we talking and praising them for that? Again, let me say, I know our teachers are doing these things. I've not been in a school system or an environment yet where we're not saying to somebody, hey, listen, you may not like this subject, but let's talk about how you can apply it. Let's be a critical thinker. Listen, I know you came up to an obstacle. Let's be adaptable and persevere through this. We do that. The conversation would be, in what ways do we support one another through that process? And how do we communicate it? So your communication point, as you started, was really about scaffolding. Feedback from the board will inform what a product might look like. And then I would submit to you that some scaffolding through our communications department will be necessary. If these are the things that we're looking at, and our community has said it, our educators and our design team have said it, and our board has given input on it, how do we start scaffolding this to support one another? Parents supporting educators, educators supporting parents, all for the betterment of students moving forward. I wonder what if. Yes, ma'am.
So I agree. I like where this is heading. When I was looking at the different items up there, it kind of goes, if you go look at the list, they are all kind of intertwined
Yes.
into this. But there was one thing that I didn't see in here. It was kind of in the emotional regulation, but the building confidence. The one thing that I have found in the business world is that when people come in for interviews, the young ones, they have no confidence. They don't know how to communicate. Their eyes are down. They talk to you and they no eye contact. The shaking of the hands.
Web the web.
Those things are
Look
just,
me in the eye, come web the web, thumb to thumb,
Yes.
let's shake hands.
And so if there's a way to intertwine that, just building the confidence that they can go out in the world.
Yeah. So here's, and I'm sorry, man.
I was just telling my colleague that was good. That was good. Let me, sorry.
One of the worst things I can do in facilitating a conversation is interrupt or disrespect. So I didn't want to
Oh,
interrupt
no,
anybody.
fine.
Sorry. Confidence. Again, I think our educators do that. Do we have a common framework for what that expectation is? Here's the example that I might provide in that space. In working with organizations, the conversation might be, hey, we talk about confidence, the web to web conversation, the web of the hand to the web of the hand, and that's how we shake hands. That's pretty universal. That's well known. Where do we talk with students about being able to do that? When a business member comes in for a lunch and learn in a middle school, or we have visit work with your mom day, or take your son to work with your dad day, or something like that. Where are the conversations about, hey, we're going to look in the eye, we're going to establish the hand-to-hand contact, and we're going to go web to web and these types of things. Having a very simple analogy, making sure that we include confidence in this is important. I hear that as feedback, and the discussion of as simple as having a unified framework about when we have these expectations, so that it's not like, oh, well, that student had Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, so that's where they do it. They do it in that class that I was a high school principal for a while. We used to have a high school class called Out Walking Everywhere and Out Walking Anywhere. It was occupational. Oh, come on, Mr. Group. What was it? It was occupational.
I remember it as out walking around, but occupational work.
We know the experience, work experience, and thank you very much. So that's not something specific for that class, just because we have this OWE or this DECA program at the Career Center. Every student needs to know, hey, listen, we're going to be confident, and we're going to fake it till we make it. We're going to look somebody in the eye. We're going to shake a hand.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. I've got confidence. Thank you for the help on the acronym, too. I wonder what if.
I love the format. I was jotting down my own list before we got to the list, and it seemed like we captured the 14 things that I had written down were captured already. I'm kind of with Libby. I had quite a lot on personal training, emotional intelligence, goal achievement, and successful experiences. We want our students to graduate feeling like they're successful, so they know how to act. But the others, the reading competencies, conceptual, strategic thinking, we captured all that. So I love that. I have lots of I wonders. I have 3 I wonders.
Yes, sir.
And one is, I wonder if there is not a way to let students perform at their own pace. have not such a stigma of I took longer at this, or I took, my son was one of my sons was really highly intelligent, and he was in a school where everything was paced. So, but there was no stigma if your career path was 11 years, 10 years, or 16 years. It made no difference. If you were,
Yes, sir.
if you needed the extra time to graduate high school, it didn't matter because everybody was working at a pace system. So I know we're very structured and we have grade levels, but I just wonder what we could do to facilitate more flexibility, less guilt, etc. Um, the other one was how can we be more inclusive, like no child left behind. And I think we've kind of maybe turned no child left behind here on its head, where the more gift, and we've seen it in performance. Our gifted students are underperforming, and I'm hearing that the attention is going to the squeaky wheel, right? The kid that does need more attention, and therefore the quieter children and the more mainstream, I guess, children aren't getting the attention. So that would be I wonder. And then finally, what? How can we be? I forgot that. I'm sorry. Also, I wonder if we are not effectively using our data. In other words, determining who and who is not preparing the students for the next level. We have the data. I don't know that we are digesting it, reacting to it. And finally, what if we became agile and responsive?
Can you say more about that, sir? I like, thank you very much, by the way. You followed the format perfect. I like a couple of things, and it sounds like everything was grouped there, and you see your thoughts also reflected. You gave me three wonders: pacing, inclusivity, and effective use of data. And then can you say more on the what if component?
What if we became more agile, more adaptive? When we identify needs and when we identify shortcomings, what if we adapted quickly to those?
And what does that support look like? And thank you very much. I captured that. Thank you for that clarification. And ma'am, Member Walsh?
Hi, yeah,
Hi.
I'm going to just repeat. So I'm going to say thanks to my colleagues for being in front of me and not to hold things up. But one I would definitely want to include to that great list is I wonder if our community was more engaged, our parents were more engaged, our business leaders were more engaged, if that would have a meaningful impact.
Thank you very much, Board
Oh,
Member.
and our retirees and had more of a volunteer force.
And my apologies, I didn't mean to interrupt there. I heard and our engagement of our retirees and our workforce. And I think that this night might be I'm not gonna say a milestone. I don't want to pretend like my presentation is a milestone in anything, but at least in terms of the board kind of considering these ideas and weighing in, I think that as you see organizations that are a bit more mature in this process, they do start to vet these ideas out after an iteration or two of, hey, so we've been at this a while, we've put some things in place for mutual support, we've put some things in place in an effort to be more inclusive and agile. Where are we at and starting to get some targeted feedback on this? Because I think this is really kind of, as they do kind of software launches, this is going to be version 1 dot whatever. And if we do it and do it well, there should be iterations of that. And there should be opportunities for additional feedback so that the end size of 234 only grows. Any other feedback
Yes.
as I try to put this together? Yes, Madam President.
So I did the likes. I did have a few. I wonder what if kind of together. And I'm going to lump it as one big one. The main thing I wonder and what if would be if some of these specialty schools that are not necessarily in a smaller public school district, how could we wonder or what if we could incorporate those such as like a Marburn Academy model, where you have students that are high functioning or ADHD, and there's an academy that can support those students where they may need a little more but smaller class sizes and things like that. Also, other academies that are geared towards workforce because we know that's kind of where we are, to put the school where the industry is. Um, that would be another I wonder what if. So then that changes because I think a lot of times where we're just located, physically located, we're kind of away from things. So students don't get to see downtown as much unless they may be going with the school. I don't know how often their parents get them there, if their parents are working two jobs or something like that. So they may not get to see and experience those things. So what if we had our campus
Yes.
was broader and outside of this southeast, Hamilton Road area, where we actually have the class or the campus where the industry is located, such as a Rickenbacker for an aviation program, or at a marketing firm like Orange Barrel Media downtown, something like that, a larger HR company, or working with Morocco, something like that. So as we're getting students in those pathways, we've developed an academy approach that would go with that I wonder what if. And I know we do have plans to visit a school like that, but since we're here, I want to just put that out there.
Well, Madam President, again, I was trying to be humble earlier in saying, like, I don't want to pretend that the presentation is a milestone in and of itself. That it's really the conversation that can be the milestone. But the other thing that I just really want to say is, as I respond to your statement in terms of being a little bit more critical or future focused and driven on partnerships, like number one, that makes a ton of sense as a board that you're considering how do we consider this in the realm of partnerships more effectively, but also because this is the springboard then for what our superintendent goals and strategic plan might look like.
Yep.
So I don't want to cut a conversation off short, but I do want to say that where you are headed is exactly where this is going next, because this is the anchoring point for what would be your superintendent goals in 72 hours from now in a strategic plan. And that was not planned. I've actually never met your board president before, but she just teed me up greatly. I don't want to cut any conversation short, but I do want to say that if, with your permission, I'm going to move on to that section then.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, thank you very much for your insights. I've taken a group of notes. Like I said, it's my task after this to take this back and provide some of your summaries in response to what these might look like to your superintendent and his team. The other thing that respondents were asked was to share a little bit of the good news. What is it that's going well as you consider these things that students need to be able to do, need to know, be able to do, and be considerate of as they move forward from a graduation stage? You also got several responses that can be grouped together pretty well. Career pathways and career centers is exactly what your board president was starting to talk about in terms of partnerships. I know that your statement was much broader than that, but it was a common theme that came out, as well as, you have some caring adults in this organization that really do want to help students to be successful as humans, not just in academic pursuits. Extracurricular activities, sports, clubs, and community involvement are themes that you all have also presented. Skill building and life skills. This is what we try to do on the daily. I think this statement is really in reference to how do we build a scaffold that allows us to speak in the same language. Supportive teachers and relationships. Student leadership opportunities. One of the things that we embrace here is the idea of diversity and inclusion. You all have actually spoken to it. Board member Kirshner spoke to this very clearly just a few moments ago. Positive behavior interventions and supports. You all have talked about in different flavors, community engagement and involvement, and academic programs, rigorous curriculum, and innovative programs. So that takes us with the feedback of the community into this idea of strategic planning. So as the board president kind of teed up and said, I wonder if this framework can be a consideration for how we consider partnerships with other organizations. You specifically mentioned Marburn. I know you have your career technical facility right down the street. You have other opportunities for your students in and around this area. That becomes the work then of the superintendent to lead. You all give the superintendent those priorities. In my efforts to provide strategic thinking and partnership in various organizations, this is the general framework by which we kind of think of these things. A flow chart, a hierarchy, a line graph, whatever we want to use. There's a couple of terms that I'll be using here that I'll ask for your insights on. So the framework for developing a strategic plan is really around strategic actions. I had a board member once say, Steve, we don't need a plan. Everything our board does, we attempt to do strategically to begin with. I don't disagree. That's what my wife says to me when she doesn't want to say that she agrees with me. Sorry. Um, I acknowledge that what you do in every decision you make is strategic. How is it that we collectively think about strategy? Well, strategic actions are motivated by priorities. And this is very squarely where you as a board live. You live in the world of governance and oversight. What is governance and oversight if it's not a priority? What are the priorities then that you would have the superintendent and the team here consider? Because it's their job then to start to put together objectives. Now, I'm going to pause very quickly on the term objectives. Often objectives are interchangeable with goals. And if we've all read from 2001 when Coach Tressel won the national championship in 2002 with his team, he did a book study on Good to Great by Jim Collins, and that's where we all learned the term that goals are supposed to be SMARTs. They're supposed to be strategic, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time bound. Sometimes people get goals and objectives confused. They're often used interchangeably, but this is where the superintendent's job is to step in and say, okay, what are the objectives in order to accomplish what the board says are our strategic priorities? And then they're going to put strategies and action steps behind that. So tonight, not only have I asked you to weigh in on the conversation around competencies, but I'm now going to ask you to shift as you think about those competencies in a larger context and begin to think about what are the priorities that are necessary in order to accomplish that from your seat. Your superintendent was kind enough and vulnerable enough, which in my mind means courageous for any of my Brene Brown fans in the room. Your superintendent was vulnerable enough. He shared his superintendent goals from the current academic year with me. Those goals were to improve school safety, to improve academic performance, to secure, and maybe this is your superintendent and treasurer, to secure the financial future, and establish a communication plan. Those are very solid goals. I would submit to you that often those goals can fit in a lot of spaces, and those goals are always steps that we need to take in continuous improvement. Earlier today, I met with your cabinet to talk about their status on those goals. And the proposed priorities for your feedback are provided for you in 4 areas: safety and facilities. I think that your superintendent and Mr. Superintendent, please, again, I'm not trying to speak for the team, still see the need for improvements in safety, and the fact that you all have done some work in facilities and need to continue to do some work. They actually saw these 2 things as being intertwined. Instruction and learning. This is the core of our business on the daily. We have to get better in this space, whether it incorporates our current 1 plan on file with the Department of Education, or whether it incorporates the work that we intend to do as a district in the upcoming year. Our core business is around instruction and learning. We have to continue to get better at communication, and fiscal responsibility and transparency has to be one that we're always mindful of. I have drafted with the feedback from the team some of those ideas that I hope you'll see. But in following the idea of priorities, and this is where I'm going to ask for your feedback, it will then become the goal or the intent of the strategic or of the cabinet to begin to develop what are the objectives in order to accomplish those goals. I'll tell you, they've already spitballed and have some ideas, but we can't move too far down that road without your feedback to us on whether or not we're aiming at the right target. I believe I have some fellow veterans on the board here. Is that right? So hopefully this analogy will be appropriate, and forgive me if it's not. I was a tank commander, and I was in the armored cav for a period of time, my career in my life before I entered education. And I would say to you that part of that role and that responsibility was making sure that we were aiming at the right target. Always wanting to make sure that we were aiming at the right target. And in doing so, on an Abrams M1A1 tank, you have kind of 6 factors that actually come into play in order to be able to reach out and influence the right target. Things like the curvature of the earth, barometric pressure, wind speed, air temperature, speed of a vehicle, speed of a target, all come into play with that. And how frequently are we calibrated on the right topics? So this is an effort for us to calibrate, given the feedback not just from the cabinet, but also from you as the board on those priorities, because again, governance and oversight, am I right? So we didn't want to get too far down the road of writing goals and objectives without your input on the priorities. What if we're off by a degree, right? We don't want to be off. So that they can start to report out to you what their strategies are that they're taking, how they're resourcing that, and how they're ensuring that their goals are being met. So your feedback tonight will follow the exact same protocol that we used before. I wonder, what if. Drafted for you and shared with the superintendent and the cabinet earlier today are 4 priorities. The first one being safety and facility enhancements. Forgive me, members of the audience, as I read these. It's small language. I know that it's hard to read, but I want the board's feedback on these things. At Groveport Madison School District, we recognize that safety and modern facilities are foundational to a productive learning environment and are essential for success and well-being of our students, staff, and community. We envision a future where our state-of-the-art and sustainable facilities inspire learning and foster the atmosphere of trust and, I did this before, confidence. By prioritizing safety, we ensure that every individual can engage fully in education without fear, while our investment in cutting-edge infrastructure supports innovative teaching and diverse activities. This commitment not only addresses current needs, but also secures the long-term excellence and vibrancy of our schools, demonstrating our dedication to creating a legacy of education and personal growth. Now, members of the board, this was not sent to you last weekend for your review. I recognize that any questions I'm asking you right now are your initial thoughts, but it is, again, this is the messy middle. This is what the cabinet and I worked through today, and we need your input as a board. So, with that statement, or with the idea of the priority of safety and facility enhancements, I'd ask you to consider the same protocol. I wonder, what if. For anyone who might be paying attention to streaming, I only have 30 minutes left. I won't go over my time, I promise. But actually, I see another design team member sitting here today. Thank you. I'm sharing with you this, that the board has not had a chance to see this yet. So they have more than come prepared for this meeting. It's just the fact of, because I got the chance to meet with the cabinet earlier today, this was my first chance to put it in front of them. Sir.
So I like this a lot, and I like what we've done with safety this past year and passing our safety plan. I know that I guess I would wonder in our safety committee meetings, it's been brought up several times, making sure that we also we did a lot of focus on our high school, but making sure that we're also focusing on our elementary and middle school as well this year.
So I wonder if we can make a stronger distinction to ensure that it's K-12, pre-K-12,
Correct.
systemic, not just 9-12.
Correct.
Thank
Yep.
you, sir.
My initial thought, I definitely like what it states, especially the portion, and it goes back to what board member Gray stated about confidence. Our students will be more confident in a newer school, in a safer school. I know a lot of times I was sharing with a neighbor how, when I was working with another school district, when they took students to a site visit, when they were looking at, I think this may have been the old Lyndon McKinley, looking at a new building, and they equated being smart or dumb based off the type of building they were in. So a lot of times students equate having nice spaces based off of how smart they are or not, which then goes back to that confidence piece that
Yes, ma'am.
board member Gray was speaking on. So I really love the fact that you added that word in there and how it ties in to safety, because you can be confident if you don't have to worry about your environment. You can be confident because you have the things that your colleagues or counterparts in Dublin, Worthington, or Upper Arlington might have.
Or you can be more secure in your learning as well. So I appreciate that, and I assure you the word confidence is actually nothing more than a lucky moment.
She teed us up again, huh? We teed you up again. We're doing good.
I like it. Thank you. Any other feedback on safety and facilities?
Yeah, I really like where it says current needs, but also secures the long-term excellence.
Yeah.
Excellence is what we're striving for.
So thank you very much, ma'am, and board member Gray. I think I was able to kind of give a synopsis of a very action-oriented design team that met, that they were focused on. We really want our students to be able to be action-oriented. It's not just a passive situation when we graduate. The other synopsis or vibe, maybe that's the right word, that I got from your admin team today is very future-focused. Like the strategic plan needs to point us in a future orientation for action. We can get bogged down in the day to day and we can get mired in the requirements that we have. But how is it that we think strategically as we move forward? Thank you.
Yeah, and I just like with the word excellence in there instead of being mediocre or being right there in the middle, just
Being good
excellence.
enough?
Yes,
Yes,
we
ma'am.
need to be excellent.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The only other thing I would say, adding from a wonder or what if, is just kind of, I know we always plan ahead, but I always think also about the student today. So any language or planning actions for the student today as we're working towards the new things, the changes, what about the student today? Because there could be some students that, they graduate next year, so they won't necessarily benefit, but what part of it, how can they be included and their families be included now, in the earlier stages, but somehow having that inclusivity and maybe communication and all that to where they feel a part and not left out.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Kirshner?
Yeah, I like the safety aspect. I differ on the modern facilities. You were talking about military education. I guess half of West Point should probably be bulldozed under. And
I'm not advocating for
no,
that.
no, I'm just saying when you think a building has to be modern to be excellent in education, I wonder if
Duke University, Princeton, Yale, Harvard.
old buildings do not, modern facilities do not provide better education than old facilities. Better educators and better practices deliver that, I believe. So I differ greatly with the modern facilities, our foundation. They're not.
Thank you, sir.
I think, I mean, that's just my feeling on that. I wonder if we are addressing behavior versus facilities when it comes to academics and security. So it's obviously important to have secure facilities, secure doors, with the metal detection, all that's great. But without addressing the behavior, we're not creating a secure environment.
And actually, so Member Kirshner, I did you a disservice, and that's my apology. On some of the sample objectives that your cabinet discussed actually today, that I just provided as food for thought in terms of wanting to reference what they shared. First off, I hear you on the modern conversation and it being of substance and consequence that matters, not modernity or something. But I also hear you and would echo that your team earlier today, or the superintendent's cabinet earlier today, did talk about the behavior component of when we put these objectives and SMART goals into place. Part of making sure that we are safe is having response to interventions, having trauma-informed practices, having the right, not just programs, but people to support behavior.
Right.
So thank you for sharing that. I did you a disservice by not talking about sample potential objectives there. And that was a miss on my
No, that's
part.
okay. I'm just sharing, we're just sharing the I wonder what.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And I would say, what if we slowed down and made safety and outcomes a higher priority in our building plan, in our bond issue plan? And then finally, I guess I'd say, what if we didn't put so much energy and stimulus into the idea that our students today aren't capable or having a good education because they have to keep up with the Joneses on the age of a building, right? Like, why are we so focused on buildings being from the 70s being too old, etc.? So I think there are times when they are, but also when it comes to this, and I know I'm not really putting some of this in the I wonder what if.
I understand, sir.
But we have buildings that were built because at the time.
How is the weather today?
at the time, open classrooms was all the
Yeah,
rage,
it's
right?
1970s. Yes,
So,
sir.
we were chasing against probably much advice. We were chasing the latest and the greatest. And there's an example of where modern isn't always better.
At conflict.
Right.
No, and this is exactly the type of feedback. Please, a couple of lines in the sand that I just want to make sure I draw. I'm not placing any focus on this is good, this isn't good.
Right.
That's not my role here at all this evening. And if I'm portraying
No, no.
that to you,
This
in
is
some way,
just
that's not my intent.
responding to the line safety
Of
in modern
modern. Got it.
facilities. That
Thank you,
modern
sir.
facilities thing just
And that's good feedback. I do appreciate. But what I also hear is maybe taking umbrage. I wonder if we can omit the idea of modern. We really need to that stable, confident, important, foundational facilities are important. Safety needs to be a priority.
Yeah.
But the idea that we're not safe if we're not modern
adequate,
is
great, good
great.
facilities.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Walsh.
I guess it was the modern thing.
Yeah, thank you. No, what I hear is as a priority, safety is still there.
Oh yeah.
As the consideration of modernization, that can
Yeah,
be
and
massaged.
also, yeah, newer is not safer.
Correct. Yes, sir.
I mean,
Thank you.
we've had that discussion. You know, newer is a lot of times less safe than 12-inch masonry, right? Walls,
Yes, sir.
interior walls, right?
Thank you. Ms. Walsh.
So yeah, I would agree with that. And I also think the modern facilities should come out. I don't have a problem necessarily with modern, but that doesn't necessarily equate to a better education.
Yes.
He's brought up good points with the military, and I look at old districts like Bexley where they have old schools and they have high outcome.
Thank you.
Also, I think we should have in here that the community schools are important with our high social economically disadvantaged student population. Having smaller community schools where the students can walk to school to engage in extracurricular activities. We have parents who don't even have vehicles. We have single family parents who can't be there to walk their kids or drive their children to school. The kids have to get to school on a bicycle or walk, and we need to have those options available for our student population. I think that's more important than. I think that's the most important thing.
Community
right now.
schools,
Yes,
yes, ma'am.
community.
So accessibility is also kind of a broad theme that I'm
Absolutely,
hearing.
absolutely.
Thank you for that feedback. And in the interest of time, again, certainly I need your feedback on these types of things. The term modern really should be stricken. I understand. I would certainly have that in my notes. I need to owe that to your superintendent, and the idea of kind of accessibility and what it means to truly be a community-oriented district are some of the main themes. In addition, our I'm sorry.
And I was just going to say, not modern doesn't necessarily mean new
Right.
per se. It's just
Up to
we're
code.
able, yes, or renovate. Like I know we're trying to look at renovation with our current buildings, but OFCC said no, you don't. It doesn't meet our standards, so you have to do
Right.
new. And in our situation, since we
Elevators,
don't have the
auditorium stages.
finances to do it on our own, that's the route we were going. I would like to also state, I guess with the safety and facilities, and we're talking about accessibility, adding another sample objective or another line item, that partnership. So maybe this is an opportunity for a board member or a cabinet member to work with CODA or things like that. If there are those challenges, because we do know, at least in Groveport proper, the closest bus stop, there's no sidewalks to get to it. So, which those are different challenges we have in various areas of our district as we cover and touch multiple cities.
Yeah, and I think the feedback that you're providing, specifically some of the idea of the partnerships, I think those will become embedded in some objectives and goals here. But what I do hear again is I hear that the priority of safety is correctly positioned and needs to remain a priority, even though it was a superintendent goal previously. We need to keep that at the forefront because our next one gets us to our core business, which is academic engagement. Spent a lot of time with your academic officers, and their voices resonated loudly in the community earlier because, and again, forgive me as I just kind of go through this. Academic engagement, Groveport Madison School District is committed to fostering an environment where academic engagement is at the heart of our education mission. We envision a future where every student is deeply involved in their learning, driven by curiosity, supported by dynamic and innovative teaching methods. By prioritizing academic engagement, we ensure that students are not only absorbing knowledge, but this was not planned either. By absorbing knowledge, but also developing critical thinking, creativity, and a lifelong love of learning. Our dedication to this priority will cultivate an atmosphere of active participation and intellectual curiosity, preparing our students for success in an ever-changing world. Commitment underscores our goal of achieving educational excellence, I heard that term already, and empowering every student to their highest potential. Some potential objectives here. Impressively, I heard it right at the very beginning of your meeting where you state your 5 principles. So it really is, how do we continue to activate our 5 principles of we focus on learning, we collaborate, we take responsibility, we ask what are the results, and we decide what to do next. Focus on our 1 plan's goals. Already we've talked about PI improvement, absentee reduction, and diversification of staff. We have some instruction and assessment goals that certainly need to be here, as well as, and I think this is a celebration, as well as academic pathway creation and expansion, JROTC as an example, construction technology, and EMT. We're not in competition with Eastland Fairfield, but we can continue to offset and provide things and pathways for our students. So again, same framework. This will be our 2nd priority. I'm looking for feedback on, am I off? Am I on? Was the work of the cabinet correct? Yes, ma'am.
Right off the bat, I noticed that it said every student is deeply involved in their learning, but also the parents should be involved in that.
Students and parents, thank you. We are talking about partnerships here. You're
Yeah.
right. Students
Yes.
and parents.
I think that a lot of times that's the disservice that we do, is that we don't
right.
include the parents in the process.
And we make assumptions about parents. Well, they know this, and when I talk,
Yeah.
our language doesn't always
Mhm.
gel. So how do we have that conversation?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that.
And it shouldn't matter the grade level. I do notice as our students get older, we do put the responsibility on the student, of course, because we
They
want
still
them
have parents.
They do. There should be some sort of a communication with that. But I would say, like they do in the Department of Veteran Affairs, it's a pack model. So you have your nurse, your person that does your scheduling, your doctor. Same thing here. We kind of have that same model. You have your educator, your parent or guardian, and the student. We are your academic team. So maybe developing some sort of framework like that to articulate that to the community, and then you could have village partners. I know the African American community, we call it our village. It takes a full village. So we have our people, our village moms and dads. How can we incorporate that same framework with this particular strategic priority? So I wonder if, in this case,
Yes, ma'am.
or a what if we had framework very specific to that to help our students and our parents and those that want to support kids understand their role and being a part of that, as we call it in the Department of Veterans Affairs, PAC team. So what is our academic team? I don't know what that would look like or the acronym we would use, but
Well,
that is
I bet we'll come up with an acronym. But
we will.
But I hear that
We're
as
in the
very much.
education world, it's all acronyms.
I hear that very much as an objective, and again, if I'm able to kind of pull us and make sure that we're focused on the priority, I think your feedback right now is this not only would this be a priority, but I'd also like to see a goal written where we can consider that, because we need to be community oriented in that space.
Yeah, I like this. This is spot on. And just going back to what you were mentioning earlier about connecting businesses with the schools and creating those pathways, I wonder, what is the potential of a Rickenbacker, for instance, relationship, and what that would look like for an academic pathway for our students. So absolutely, this is, for me, spot on.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Other feedback, because I don't pretend that it's all spot on.
Just to add on to what I already gave you, though, just also there needs to be a some types of communication with that, like, because I think that's where we lose. I know it's coming up, but it's almost like every objective has a comms component, at
Correct.
least in my opinion.
Agreed.
And maybe I'm jumping ahead of your slides once again, but
No, I appreciate that, because I think you're right. The other thing that really does need to be stated is, even if these are the priorities that we set for the district as we move forward, I say we. I'm facilitating the process. I'm not owning it, which is why I'm very comfortable if somebody says, no, this is all wrong. Even if these are the priorities that we're setting as we move forward, the conversation of those tangible next steps and those objectives is critical. And that's the feedback that, quite honestly, the administrators need to hear. And they don't stand alone. So you mentioned communication, and I was joking, because communication is actually the next one to come up. Because like you could say, communication has to be intertwined with safety. You talked about one of the successes that's been going on in this community for a while now has been your safety committee that's been successful. That requires communication. Putting together the communication plan is essential to our academic vision. How do we partner better with not only parents but other organizations? So yes, these are not necessarily standalone, but in order to have a priority, we know that something's going to bleed into something else.
Well, I like the opening. I like the first paragraph in the statements there. Overall, I wonder if it couldn't be more succinct.
Okay. I do have an issue with that if you haven't noticed, John. I do tend to expand a bit too much.
No, that's fine. The innovative teaching methods, I think that can be great, but I also wonder if we shouldn't be focused on the basics. We have Chromebooks, we have technology. They're not necessarily delivering better. I look at my father's now about to turn 98. He went to 16 different schools, bounced around a lot, but I would put his education, his high school education, up against anybody's, and math skills, etc. So I don't know that we've come that far.
Modern doesn't necessarily mean better. Innovative doesn't necessarily mean better.
And we experienced during COVID having to, or during, I'm sorry, not COVID, during computer issue, having to take the Chromebooks away and kids getting engaged with books. And so I wonder if getting down to basics isn't the best thing for our students. I wonder about, I guess I don't have a good term for it, but cross-pollinating, using our music to educate for math, using our arts to educate, so that everything's working together holistically. And I also wonder if we have great, fantastic forward-looking ideas in preparing students for a career. However, I wonder if we shouldn't crawl, walk, and run. Right.
Member Kirshner, I think you bring up a couple of excellent points. Again, the idea that innovative doesn't necessarily mean better. The other thing that I'll say is, for many of your cabinet here, I tried to synthesize the conversations that they were having in the room around these priorities to pitch them to you so that we could put some meat on the bones and I wasn't just sharing with you generic language. So these words are the words that I tried to put together based on the conversation with them. So even your administrative team hasn't necessarily weighed in on this. So your feedback on, I don't know that innovative teaching methods really needs to be there when we're talking about academic engagement. The true concern of engagement is really the executive functioning or something like that. So we will make that consideration. I appreciate that feedback. Hello, ma'am.
So I'm having a little problem following because I didn't receive these in my packet. And so I'm reading closed caption to what my fellow board members are saying. You can't really follow all of this, but I think I'm caught up, and I will say that cultivating, I like the beginning part of this also. I think having our students engage, curiosity supported by dynamics and innovative teaching. I think we're working towards those goals with some of our new initiative type things that we have in place. Cultivating an atmosphere of active participation and intellectual curiosity. I think if we have schools that are in neighborhoods where the kids can actually get to extracurriculars, have summer programs there, like in the arts, and that might help with that. It also, I think, will help one of our plan goals, absentees reduction. If a student misses a bus, they don't have a parent who can drive them to school, they're going to miss school. If they can walk to school, they're going to be able to get to school.
Yes,
so these are important things. I know we talked about bus stops in Groveport. Is that for the high school? Is that what you were talking about, Madam President?
Yes, it was a community conversation we had this past week with some neighbors, and we were just talking about the various communities that our school district covers and talking about some of the needs of different bus stops. That bus stop is only an hour, runs every hour, it doesn't run every 5 minutes. There's not a sidewalk to get there, but that was specific to a specific neighborhood. I was just using that as an example.
Yeah, so yeah, the high school is a problem being, away from everybody. But we really, I think a lot of what we're talking about here, a lot about pathways and all that, but our elementary education, the beginning, the foundation, we're having problems. What if we had students who came into high school who were reading at a high school level, who were doing math at a high school level? What if we had students who were going into middle school who were at that level? I think we need to look at getting
An academic
there.
rigor.
And I
Yes,
think is that the crawl, walk, run. So
that's what I think, and I definitely hear that theme. And again, Board Member Walsh, I do want to say and acknowledge very transparently with you specifically that this is very fresh. This is fresh off the press, only from the standpoint that you didn't have it in your packet earlier. You had a placeholder in your packet, only from the standpoint that I was able to meet with the cabinet earlier today. So I wanted to have language in front of you and also get your first reaction. So if there is something I can do to help facilitate, whether it's go slower or be more articulate, I certainly want to do that.
One more thing. So with my what if that I said earlier in regards to the academies,
Yes, ma'am.
that what if with that academies actually went all the way back to elementary. When speaking of that, when some
Think
of the models,
systemically pre-K.
yes, where it automatically starts. If a lot of times they say what did you want to be when you're in elementary school? Some people may want to be a doctor. Well, what is it that did not keep you on that path? It's not being in those environments. It's not cultivating that space to keep you there. So as Board Member Walsh is saying, that'll be the purpose of academies when you're identifying things. Of course, it may change for a student because everybody wants to be a firefighter, everybody may want to be a
in the
policeman,
NBA.
and that may change, or a YouTuber. But that's not necessarily. We could try to look at those academies even as far back as fourth and fifth grade to then pathway them all the
To
way
start
forward.
to develop interests,
Yes,
and take
sir.
interest inventories, and really be tied into the community. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that feedback. I have one more that I want to go over with you all for feedback. And that one is really now, as our president spoke very candidly about, in terms of communication efficacy or efficiency. This will be the last one that I'll go over for these 8 minutes. I need your feedback on. Uh, excuse me. Looking for your feedback again. Forgive me for reading. Groveport Madison School District, we understand that effective communication is vital for building a cohesive and supportive educational community. We envision a future where transparent, timely, and inclusive, Board Member Kirshner, that's not an accident, inclusive communication fosters trust and collaboration among students, staff, parents, and the wider community. By prioritizing communication, we ensure that everyone is informed, engaged, and able to contribute to the decision-making process. This commitment to open dialogue enhances relationships, supports student success, and strengthens the bonds within our community. God bless you. Our dedication to clear and effective communication will create a culture of mutual respect, shared responsibility, driving the district towards a collective excellence. Some of the sample goals here that came out from the team, or potential goals, are going to be around efficiency and clarity of messages. I know that the district is rebuilding a website. What are the metrics that we're taking there? Developing the metrics, being able to report to the board on what those are. Saturation, thank you, sir. Saturation on district messages and internal communication improvement with our staff and our employees. Following the previous protocol, if this is the right priority, I wonder what if, Madam President.
I actually just want to do something before we jump in. I want to make a motion to extend this for 20 minutes if need be. That way we're not pushing. We do have one more goal to go over, and I think it's very important work for those that have participated. If I could have a second, I make the
Second.
motion to extend the Portrait of a Cruiser presentation and conversation by 20 minutes. Who was my second?
Yes, second.
Some
All right. Thank you, Mr. Kirshner. Mr. Treasurer, if we could have roll call, please.
Mrs. Dahlberger.
Aye.
Mr. Bauer.
Aye.
Ms. Gray.
Aye.
Ms. Kirshner.
Aye.
Ms. Walsh.
aye.
All right, motion passes. So you have till 8:20 now.
Madam President, thank you for that
You're very
grace.
welcome. Thank
I'll
you.
be very honest with you. Earlier today, in communication, your superintendent is smiling because I said, "Man, I don't know that I have 90 minutes worth of content to provide to your board. I don't want to waste their time." So here we are. It doesn't seem like it's a waste of time. So thank you for that.
Not at all. The like I said, been talking to members of my community, of the community where I live, and individuals reaching out. One thing I think that could help from a comms perspective is develop like a beta test group. Actually, I will not take credit. I would like to give credit to one of our community members in the audience, Miss Gibson, about having a beta test group, because then are the ones that are really seeing it, us on the board, you're in it, so you have a different level of understanding. We have that aerial and in the weeds, but when it gets to them, sometimes they're not necessarily able. But maybe what if we had, and how could that help with the efficiency and clarity? Because we keep saying what we think, but if we got more insight from parents, and
Yeah.
community members, that could help.
A beta test group. So I hear that as a potential goal. Thank you very much. And you're right. As board, and now I can step into that kind of collegial board member role. As board members, we do hold ourselves to the priorities in the governance and oversight role, and yet sometimes we do get pulled into this other space where we're trying to be helpful and really be insightful. So I hear a potential goal in this space of a beta testing group. Thank you, ma'am. Ideas around the priority language, though. I'm not hearing that it's a wrong priority yet.
No, I think it's great. I have nothing that I would add to it.
I agree. I think it's great. I'd like to see maybe if we could be a little bit explore other innovative ways to use our social media and other avenues. So I know that we do Facebook well, but there's other areas that we can probably grow in that as well. So looking at maybe how we can be a little bit more innovative with our communication.
So I hear specifically around media avenues.
Yes.
Just because I suspect that the conversation around innovation might come up. So I wanted to be very clear on what I thought I heard, which was really utilization of specific avenues.
Yes.
And my other what if, and oh, did you have your hand up? I'm sorry.
No, I'm a little lost and confused. Are we on communication?
Yes, sir.
now? Okay, all right. No.
My other, I wonder what if we utilize and got students involved at the building level to help. For instance, instead of the robocall of the principal, hearing a lovely first grader let me know that parent teacher conference is happening at the elementary school, or getting their voice over on some of the comms pieces going out. How would that increase our click rate? How would that increase some of the
I can tell you
engagement?
parents will certainly click on that more.
So it kind of hearing the student voices in those, and then if there are students that have been identified, we've now developed our own internal pathway, which then this comms piece would then tag back on to academics to then have that pathway for marketing and communication that way.
And one moment of caution, Madam President, I hope that this is appropriate and you feel comfortable with me doing this. The conversation I want to make sure that we're having is whether or not the language around the priorities is
It's good. I was
target.
adding a sample objective.
So
Yeah, I'm good
I
on
think
that.
that then your feedback for the superintendent and the cabinet and team around these other ideas is essential. I don't want to cut that conversation off. I just want to make sure that before we get into kind of the goal or objective language, that hey, am I right, or is the cabinet correct on this assessment of a focus on a priority of communication efficiency?
I think it's good. I think the only thing add into the statement then, instead of making it a goal, add in the other media avenues.
Yes.
Add that as a part, not in as a goal. It should be a part of the statement. That'd be the only thing I would say add instead of making it a goal.
That's brilliant. You know what? And I wouldn't have gotten to that spot. So I hear the beta testing as a potential objective. I hear the conversation on adding the media avenues into the actual priority language, and then the utilization of student voice where appropriate is a potential objective. Other members?
I actually like that this is spontaneous and we're seeing it now and brainstorming together. I think that's awesome. I think it's healthy for us to share our ideas and hear each other share our ideas.
Thank you, sir.
And where communication is concerned, I wonder if we are providing the correct oversight. I wonder what if we strengthened our standard operating procedures and documentation. so that just, as we referenced military before, and I'm sure you had the same thing I did, you had to have records of conversations with all your crew members before you went on a mission. At least I did. And so, the teachers, what if the teachers knew and engaged the students and the families, but also demonstrated that? So when there was conversation, there's records of conversations and there's evidence of conversations, so we can differentiate the ones that are really doing it and the ones that aren't. Let me see. Oh, yeah, I think we've experienced where we've had high performers and underperformers, but yet their files look the same. So I think internal communication, I think that needs to be part of our priorities as well. Maybe communication, and the way I'm presenting it is communication meets documentation.
Thank you, sir. I definitely captured that. That's a very good point. Member Walsh?
I like that, having internal communication, documentation would be great. I think we have to reach out to community members who are not necessarily connected to the internet, who aren't on Facebook or on Instagram. We have to find a way to reach out to those community members.
You also mentioned the retirement community earlier as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And to the business leaders, we have some pretty large businesses, global businesses,
ma'am.
and we should be reaching out to them. And I'm not sure those CEOs are sitting on Facebook on the good, bad, and ugly. So how are we reaching them? Probably not.
Yeah, and so maybe this is also a place where some conversation around what those strategic partnerships should look like in terms of communication. What are the avenues? We often think, I heard Member Kirshner mention strengthening our internal conversation. How well do we also consider exactly what the strategic partnerships are with additional resources we've had? I've heard partnerships a number of times from the board, so maybe this is where some of that can reside. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, yeah.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, 75%, we're doing well. Moving on then to our now this one might also spark the least amount of conversation, because quite honestly with the cabinet today, this is the one that we kind of got to last, and as people's energy was starting to wane after such a lengthy meeting, I acknowledge that there might be some insights here. So our fourth and final priority, with your approval. Oh, sure. I thought for a second I had the same slide in twice. Endeavor for financial transparency. Groveport Madison Schools is dedicated to maintaining the highest standards of financial transparency, recognizing the critical role in building trust and accountability within our community. We envision a future where all financial operations are conducted with openness and clarity, ensuring that resources are managed responsibly, efficiently to support our educational goals. By prioritizing transparency, we empower stakeholders with the information necessary to understand and participate in financial decisions that impact our schools. Commitment fosters trust, promotes prudent fiscal management, ensures that every dollar is used effectively to enhance student achievement and district success. Our dedication to financial transparency underscores our integrity and accountability, securing the confidence of our community and sustainability of our educational mission. It's a mouthful. One of the ideas that I have for this particular priority might be too condensed, but I'll listen to you for feedback first.
One area that I was thought of was the seeking financial opportunities outside of our local, so being able to grant research and things like that.
Thank you,
Needs
ma'am.
to be added.
Oh,
And of course, like we've talked all along, partnerships with businesses.
thank you, ma'am.
I think it's there. I think there's also one other area we could, I don't know if it's transparency, but we do have an ed trust, and how those partnerships could, I don't know if that needs to be included or a sample objective, but I'll yield to my colleagues. I just want to, that we keep that in the forefront as a way to get donations. We do have that established.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah,
I do like this. I do agree with you, though. I think we could maybe condense this a little bit further
Yes.
after looking at it. But I think that it's good. It just needs condensed a little bit.
Thank you, sir.
We all like, I'll say I like financial transparency, and I know we all do. I think, tagging on to what Libby said, I really like what she said there. I think maybe financial transparency is too narrow. I think maybe it should be financial excellence or uh, something broader. It's not just about, as Libby points out, it's not just about transparency, but it's about financial success, finding other tools, more tools in the toolbox. So, what if we expanded the definition of this particular priority beyond
Expanding
transparency?
financial success.
And then I wonder if we are effectively and completely using open checkbook, or if we're using it at all. And I would say, what if we were more responsive to information requests? So if this particular thing is transparent, then getting at the information should be quick, effective, easy. So whatever we can do to make that happen, the checkbook.
So you're really kind of spinning off on the transparency component versus the financial.
Yeah, the transparent. You can't
Got it.
be financially
Understood.
transparent unless you answer the question when the
Got it.
community comes forward with it.
Time. Yeah, I respect it. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, I think they hit it on the head. I like it. I also wrote down open checkbook with financial transparency. So yeah, good job, everyone.
Great. Well, ladies and gentlemen of the board, then the thing that I hear is that there's massaging necessary, but the priorities are in general right. They build on what you've been articulating. You'd like to see some further work done in this space, and I think ultimately that's where we need to go with our board. So as I look at our roadmap for this strategic plan journey, I shared at the beginning that I engaged with your design team early. We went to your community for feedback. And that then led us back to the design team for some refinements so that I could come to you and your board cabinet, or I'm sorry, in the superintendent's cabinet earlier today for your insights. It's now my responsibility between now and Thursday to package your notes and provide them in a coherent fashion for your superintendent and his cabinet. That is what I will endeavor to do. I don't pretend that this strategic plan is being approved tonight. There was nothing from my perspective that was an action item. The thing that I needed in order to support you and your district appropriately is to make sure I got your feedback on two specific items: competencies for consideration as a portrait of a cruiser, and how that might spring us into a strategic plan as we move forward. John, I'm going to come back to a statement you made of, I actually like that we're kind of going through this in real time. I will say to Kathy that I do apologize that you didn't have it beforehand, but at the same time, there is some validity in kind of working through the messy middle together. That if this was wrong, I would know very quickly that, Steve, you've missed the mark. I don't hear that the work to date has missed the mark. What I hear is that some refinement is necessary. So what you as a board can expect is when I package this back up and provide it to your superintendent and your treasurer, that some language would then be developed around some specific goals that you provided feedback on tonight. I think our communication specialist heard very clearly partnerships. I think our academic team heard very clearly differentiation, meeting students where they are, and really talking about what educational excellence and academic excellence means. And I think for the cabinet, quite honestly, to hear those reactions from the board and to be able to hear that kind of crystal guidance outside of a business item is really important as we formulate these plans moving forward. So the calendar will turn on August 1st, and you'll have information. From my perspective to you, Mr. Superintendent, that kind of brings us to the conclusion of my presentation. I want to say to you, sir, thank you for all that you're doing. I want to say thank you to your board for kind of keeping the main thing, not getting bogged down in kind of other items, but being focused on what the priorities need to be for the upcoming year. And I look forward to kind of supporting you and your team as you move through this process. Is there anything else from me, Mr. Superintendent?
Well, Steve, number one, I would like to say thank you back. And throughout this process, every time we met, none of this is things that we had never thought of before. And that the fact that there was so much consistency, there were common thoughts, there's been alignment from different groups, gives me confidence that that's helping us point in the right direction. To some of the things you were saying, whether it's you're being a tank commander or Mr. Kirshner's mentioned being agile and responsive, the strategic plan and the portrait of a cruiser, these two documents we create, and I hope people don't think that we're going to do the same thing in every situation for every student. The exact opposite is true. But what this does is establish a standard of what we believe should be our goals and should what a cruiser graduate is going to look like, so that whether it is nomenclature aside, modern or innovative, if we're creating a classroom that's not a 30 by 30 box, but is designed to meet some type of aerotech program that we develop. And so we will have real time in the efforts we're trying to make to improve instruction, to improve the lives of our students. We'll be able to measure, are we making progress toward our strategic plan? Are we making progress toward our portrait of a cruiser? And if it's not successful, then we either modify or scrap those plans and try something else, because we're not going to be perfect in every measure. But going through those goals and objectives and measuring what we're doing doesn't support that. One of the biggest, most important things I think our community and now the board can give to us as administrators, as teachers, as support staff of the district, is knowing what those targets are. And then we can do what we believe and align to calibrate our work that we're doing, how and where we utilize resources to support that to make progress towards those goals. So again, it boils down to nothing we said tonight is like, wow, that's a novel idea I've never heard of before, or very little of it. But it really it
There might have been a
focuses
few.
on
Like let's
right.
give them some.
Yeah,
There might have
well,
been a few.
there's some right, but overall, our focus helps us align and calibrate, as you said, what we're doing to achieve those goals. Because um, if everybody's rowing their hardest and they're rowing in opposite directions, we're not going to get to our goal. And so this helps us align those efforts. And I thank you for this process. I think you did a nice job engaging our community and staff. I appreciate the work with the board tonight, because I won't speak for the rest of the cabinet, but I do feel like hearing affirmation and other ideas from our board has further clarified for me what they would like to see us do as a district, which is extremely important to our work.
Yes. Thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I wish you all the best. Good luck as the new school year approaches.
I do have a question.
you very
I don't know
much.
if it's for you or for Mr. Group. So any next, like, is there a document of the next steps in the timeline as we are closing out? I know it's activate 1 August, but as far as getting to an actual strategic plan or the draft of that, is there something you could get to the board and the community so we kind of know next steps for those pieces? I didn't know what side that was on, so.
So the current scope of work with me as an organization on behalf of the Experience Management Institute is really to provide the consultative services to get to this point. I think if the superintendent were interested in kind of expanding that, I'm happy to serve. I really appreciate this opportunity, although I also recognize that you have very qualified staff that can tie this together as well. So I don't want to, I think that'll be a decision point, Madam President, for you and the superintendent and treasurer to kind of undertake.
Okay, yeah, whoever it is, I just wanted to know if we could get that timeline, just so the board is aware, like so we can kind of follow that, and then also ask that, kind of add that as a maybe bi-monthly, or at least if we're meeting once a month, an update, just so we know where we are with getting a final product out.
And getting Steve's notes back to summarize this, we'll need a little bit of time to process. This is going to be somewhat of a while for a living document, in that I think we could very quickly get to the high level picture and bring that back to the board. I think our some of the action items and some of those that'll be continuation of development. But in my mind, I think we would bring back a somewhat polished product of both the portrait of a cruiser and the strategic plan, full presentation to the board. That's more finalized work, and then if we're in agreement, then we generate those documents and put it out and put it on our website and do all the promotion, and that becomes our measure. That becomes our stick to measure of success. Um, Gosh, I would like to say we could turn this around for the next board meeting, but we do have the start of school. So
Yeah, no,
I-
no. I'm just
I
saying,
think-
whenever you
yeah.
get it, just get us
Yep.
like a timeline.
I would think realistically we could have one of the documents for September and probably have the other document by October. Steve, I'll defer to your experience on how long it takes districts to turn this around in normal situations.
It really becomes a situation of how much support do folks want in that space, and what is the expectation for the document itself. The superintendent's goals previously were very much in a Excel kind of document, and it was a process of looking at those goals in that kind of format. What I'm proposing is into that kind of format. What we're suggesting here is something a little bit more in depth. So to that end, however in depth we want to go on that really begins to dictate how far out that might look. Having the priorities are what's essential as you start the next school year, knowing that we're going to talk about transparency as it relates to finances, academic excellence, safety and facilities, and communication. That gives this body some very clear direction on what work they need to do. How I don't know how else to say it. How polished we want it. That's where and I'll defer to our superintendent when he gives me that guidance.
And I guess I would say in my initial thought, as we developed the comprehensive safety plan, that took variations over time. We put things out, we refined, we worked, and we had kind of short, medium, and long term goals. So
if just a suggested timeline,
Yep.
I'm not trying to put you on
Yes,
the spot. I just wanted to get a timeline, an idea. It could be, tentative, at least kind of so we know it's always on the radar. The community has heard about it. We've got them engaged. So it's constantly putting it in the forefront on where we are with the process until we render a final product is what I'm asking for. So I'm not saying like, all right, Jan, we gotta have it by September 30th. And if you don't have it, then that's not what I meant.
I will
right?
refine priorities by
Yeah.
Thursday to your superintendent team, and I will ensure, or I will ask that maybe he includes you on those.
I had one note that I did forget to ask as a what if or can do for academic would be human capital management as another goal, because that's very important in order to do the academic side, human capital management. Um,
Coming from a human capital specialist, yes, ma'am.
yeah, HRT. Yep. So that's important to ensure, and that's not just the teachers; it's
No.
the entire
System.
Yep. That's something I forgot. I did want to say before you. Thank you so much for your time on behalf of the board. If anyone else was to say, we really enjoyed us speaking with you today and you taking your time and coming out and providing that and the work of our entire admin team. Thank you all for that feedback and taking the time and being committed to the work, and our community members and partners that came out. I did reach out, like you said, we as board member Wall say, I'm constantly reaching out to our community people. So we have Lead the Way, United Way, and More Inc. in the room, and a couple neighbors that I invited, and they came to actually hear what we had to say as a board, and it speaks volumes on the way that Groveport is going. So thank you all for coming this evening. This is not our regularly scheduled board meeting, and they're normally there for that. But they came out today because they work directly with our students and
Yeah.
families.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Appreciate your time. Thank you, ma'am.
I'd like to make a motion for a 10-minute recess.
So moved.
Second.
Was the motion made? Or
Yeah, I made the motion for the 10-minute recess, and then I heard
I didn't know
Kathy.
I didn't know if you made it or were calling for it.
No, I made it.
Thank you.
So Latoya Dowdell makes the motion for a 10-minute recess. I have a second by board member Walsh. Mr. Treasurer, if we could have roll call.
Mrs. Dellenberger,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Mrs. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Kirschner,
Aye.
and Ms. Walsh.
All right. Time is 8:19. We should be back in at 8:29. The time is 8:30 if we returned from recess. I would like to make a motion to add a second public participation. May I have a second?
Second.
So Latoya Dowdellberger made the motion to add a second public participation.
And
And
Mr. Bauer was second?
Yes.
I have a procedural question. This is in fact a special meeting.
Mhm.
Can we change the agenda at this point? I think we're locked into it, are we not? I mean, I don't mind, but I think we're locked into, unlike a regular agenda where we can move it, I think we're locked into our published agenda,
I think that's
unfortunately.
right. You can't change a special agenda.
Um,
When I spoke with legal, we could add it. I asked, but I'll go back. I did ask legal prior to this because with the meeting having the portrait of a cruiser first, if there was anyone that came at 8,
Right.
I wanted to make sure they had an opportunity for public participation. So I did speak with legal counsel, but if we want to vote no, or if you can give me a moment, I'll take a recess just to reconfirm with legal counsel because I don't want anyone to state that we are trying to do anything illegal or anything of that nature. So in lieu of, I think we have to vote on the motion no anyway. Is that correct, Mr. Treasurer? Would I need to just vote on this motion, or could I call for a recess to make sure we confirm?
And
with
I
legal?
just want to be clear. I am no way opposed to this. I just want to make sure we're doing
That is correct, and I did do my due diligence prior to the start of the 6:30, before 6:30, and spoke with legal counsel. But I could speak again just to make sure, with it being a special meeting, so there's no problems later. Then I just want to know how it should proceed because we do have a motion on the table, and I know we need to vote on said motion at this time. But I can pull.
Do a recess.
Okay, or I could pull the motion right now and then go to recess, and then if it's okay, re-add it. So I would like to rescind my motion for public participation, and I would like to add another motion for a 10-minute recess to consult with legal counsel.
so moved.
Second.
I made the motion. Who's my second? I'm sorry. I just want to make sure my notes are correct.
I
All
messed
right,
it up
silent,
then.
Mr. Kirschner. All right, if we could,
Listen up.
and I'm going to ask for a 10-minute recess again. My apologies, but I did seek legal counsel prior to this. I just want to triple check. If I could have roll call, Mr. Treasurer, please.
Mrs. Dellberger?
Aye.
Mr. Bauer?
Aye.
Ms. Gray?
Aye.
Mr. Kirschner?
Aye.
And Ms. Walsh?
Hi.
All right, time is 8:33. I should be back by 8:43. Thank you. The time is 8:43
was in
p.m. and
there.
I've returned from our recess. As stated, I had checked with legal counsel prior and checked again, and we can add public participation. It is not an actionable item, therefore, it does not interfere with this type of meeting in which we are holding tonight, which is a special meeting. So it's not an actionable item, and at any point, the Board of Education, with the majority votes, can add public participation at any time during a board meeting. But I want to triple check. Transparency is very important, and also reaching out to our legal counsel because I am not an attorney. But we do have folks on standby that can answer that. So without further ado, I would like to make the motion to add public participation.
Second.
All right. So first me, Mr. Kirschner is second. If I could have roll call, Mr. Treasurer.
Mrs. Dowdelberg,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Kirschner,
Aye.
and Ms. Walsh.
All right, motion passes. So on to public participation. And I have a little something to read. We have two. All meetings of the board and board appointed committees are open to the public. In order for the Board of Education to fill its obligation to complete the planned agenda in an effective and efficient fashion, a maximum of 30 minutes of public participation may be permitted at each regular Board of Education meeting. Each person addressing the Board of Education shall give his name, address, phone number, organization representative, any, and pertinent background information. If several people wish to speak, each person is allotted 3 minutes until the total time of 30 minutes is used. During that period, no person may speak twice until all who desire to speak have had the opportunity to do so. Persons desiring more time should submit their request in writing to the Board of Education office or email public.comment@gocruisers.org 7 days prior to the scheduled meeting. The period of public participation may be extended by a majority vote of the board members present and voting. Please remember that law prohibits discussion of specific employees or their job performance at a public meeting. State law does allow for discussions by board members regarding employees in executive sessions of the board. I will also add that during public participation, there's not a conversation between the board that has come up a couple times. So if you have information you would like to share with the board or schedule a meeting, I believe all of us are available. Feel free to send an email or contact the district service center to connect with us. So our very first person this evening for public participation is Miss Jane Deckard.
Good evening. My name is Jane Deckard. I live at 3808 Laguna Drive, 614-736-1496. And I really just would like to respectfully ask that Mr. Kirschner and Mrs. Walsh lean into their mics when they speak. I might be a little hard of hearing, but I can hear everybody else on the board when they speak and sometimes have difficulty hearing you. And I want to make sure that I hear everyone's comments and opinions and concerns and questions. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Deckard. Our next person is Michelle Gibson. You come to the podium, please. Very good, Mr.
Good evening, and my name is Michelle Gibson. I reside in Hickory Grove community. My address is 5621 Shellbark Street, Groveport, Ohio. My phone number is 614-668-2921. I'm here today because my son has concerns. We've talked about the things that are coming up, the buildings, the portrait of a cruiser, all that. So this is kind of coming from him. So my son asked me if we can move to Dublin. No, that's not going to happen.
Can you move the mic up to your mouth?
Sure.
So much.
So my son asked me if we can move to Dublin, and I said no, that's probably not going to happen. So he said he has friends, or asked him why. He said he has friends who go there, and their experience, according to him, is so different. He says, according to those friends, there are barely any fights, and students just don't do what they want. In the hallways or classes, they don't talk over the teachers or disrespect the teachers. He said they have real classrooms and the students respect the teachers. At his school, which is Middle School North, they're like these makeshift classrooms. That's how he explained it. The tops are not covered, so they're open on the tops. So it's very loud, very noisy. Can't hear the teacher, and just chaos. That's how he said it's just chaos. Um, and they share those dividers with multiple classes. So there's, I don't know how many classrooms there are in that section. It's not even a real classroom space. Um, this is for me. I do agree that we need to address the behaviors, which I think Mr. Kirshner said, the behavior of the students. However, and I just don't want to get hung up on the word modern, um, because I think it's more about addressing the condition of our schools, like the dividers and all that. Where our students are actually learning, like they can't learn with the noise and all that. So I guess my question to you is, and to our whole community is, why can't we address the behavior and improve the learning conditions? Can't those both be true at the same time? Um, why do we have to choose this or that? Instead, shouldn't we focus on a more comprehensive approach all the way around? Um, After all, we just heard the portrait of a graduate, which kind of is that whole entire approach. And last but not least, my child is in the gifted program, and all of these things that we talk about today and what I've talked about today does absolutely impact his learning. So, just thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gibson. Right. On to oh, I only had two, correct, Mr. Ty? We had two. Okay. All right. On to the superintendent's agenda.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. This is a short superintendent's agenda. We have one item tonight. And we gave a brief overview last month with our communications director of student services about enrollment efforts in summer work. So I'm going to ask Ty Debevoise and Jamie Scott to come up. I assume Jamie's joining him and give us an overview or a more complete version of our summer campaign efforts.
I was literally about to say good morning, good evening.
Wow. Not yet. Not
It's
yet.
been, it's
Hope
been a
not.
long day already. So thank you guys for allowing us an opportunity to talk about kind of some of the things that are going on with enrollment, how we're notifying families of different things, and how enrollment and communications are working together to make sure that we are exploring any and all possibilities to reach our families. Oh, thanks. New and different. All right. So I really only have one slide for you as it relates to enrollment, but it is a packed slide because while it seems like these are not intense things, the reality is that they are. So when we have students that contact us about enrollment, the first thing that we do is send them to our final form. So we let them know that we have it posted on our website under the enrollment department, and we walk them through where that link is and explain to them that while everything is electronic based, that we do have options that they can come in and make appointments with us to bring in their documents. We are able to scan them for them, do all kinds of things to help them if they don't have access to copiers or scanners. So that's kind of where we start. And this next part is really kind of the meat of what we do. The proof of residency. There are two different ways that you can prove residency. One is as a resident, meaning that the parents or guardians have an actual mortgage or lease in the district. The other way is through what we call a residential affidavit or an RA. And that means that you are residing with a mortgage holder or leaseholder within the district. Within the residential affidavit forms, the same proof of residency must be uploaded. We have to have the mortgage statement or lease with the tenants identified, as well as a utility bill in the leaseholder or mortgage holder's name. With the residential affidavit forms, we do request, we did some updates to those forms. They have always been expected to be re-verified every year because the majority of them are on leases. Leases are mostly a year, and we want to make sure that they are still tenants in that lease. And so we do ask that they are notarized. We do have notaries within our office so that if they do not have access to a notary in the community through their bank or other institutions, we do have notaries within the office that we can help do that. The reason that we do that is because we are experiencing extremely high levels of fraud right now. We have cultivated a great relationship with a lot of the leasing agents in the area. And so they have provided us with their templates for their leases so that we can verify what an actual lease from that apartment complex or leasing complex looks like. But we've found an extreme amount, and the same with bills. Unfortunately, there are websites out there that you can pay to have a bill and you type in the address that you want. So that's part of the reason that we are asking for multiple forms of documentation. Because again, our role is to make sure that we are protecting the taxpayers of the district and ensuring that all of our budget goes to students that reside within the district. And so it's very important for us. As we have encountered students that have moved outside of the district or whatever the case is, we will partner with them and the new district to get the documents to help them with enrollment. I just reached out to Columbus for 3 different families just this week to help expedite kind of that enrollment process for them. So this part takes a while because it is multiple pieces of paper. We do ask that the bill is within 30 days. Right now, we are looking at leases that go beyond August because that's another area that we found that we had students that were enrolling and their lease was up and they moved outside of the district but stayed here. And so we are reading their leases, and if their lease says that they had to give notice in 60 days, we look at the date that it expires. Are we within that 60-day window? We need proof of what notice that you gave. Are you going to a month-to-month lease? If so, great, just get us the information from your leasing agent. Or did you give them notice that you're moving out? So we really do talk with them. We work with them to help get them the information that they need. As far as identification is concerned, that's your standard birth certificate and photo ID, whether that's a passport or an identification card other than just a driver's license. Custody documentation is also an area of concern because in the state of Ohio, it is a mom custody state. So if we have situations in which parents were not married at the time of the child's birth, custody automatically defaults to mom. And so we have to make sure that we have custody documentation to show who is residential custodian. And so we've been working with families to help them with the filings and things like that to make sure that they get what they need. So with all of these things, at no point are we just throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, we are working with the parents to make sure that if any of these present barriers for them or any sort of roadblock, that we help them and walk them through the process of what they need and what will work for us versus what just will not meet the criteria for these areas. With the immunization records, we do request that the families provide that. Our nurses have access to the state immunization database, and so they are able to look up students once they are fully enrolled, as some of the kids get updates after they submitted their initial immunizations and things like that. But the biggest things, honestly, are the proof of residency and the identification and custody. With that, we work really hard with communications to make sure that we are sending out emails, we're sending out calls, text messages, and social media posts. Because right now, we know a lot of families will move over the summer, and so we just want to make sure that we're capturing that and we're not having any hiccups with kids being able to start school. So we want to make sure that if that happens, that we have them in the right school and we can get them started without having to have any changes along the way.
So at last board meeting, I provided you with a brief overview of how communications operates and thrilled you all with some spectacular horse puns, if you recall from last meeting. Tonight, I wanted to kind of elaborate and give you a little greater detail on some things we do within the communications department to kind of put a method to the madness. In this case, with enrollment, we work very closely with Jamie so she can, as one part, just identify some of these instances of fraud. So let's begin with our website. Obviously, the hub of our communications. We provide images and graphics on our website slider. Obviously, you can get information for kindergarten registration and our Enroll Now page. You can get to that page a dozen different ways on our website. The website sliders kind of help us grab people's attention as they first navigate to our website to kind of create that efficient pathway for them to get the information that they need. Social media. This is just a snapshot of some of the social media posts we did in July. It's a little thinner in June. School had just let out. Kids want to enjoy their summer. Parents don't even really want to think about school. So this is a snapshot of some of the posts we did in July and some of the dates. And obviously there's more to come as we kind of cycle those through. Here's our emails, all calls, and texts. We kind of coordinate these alongside of the social media posts so we're not inundating people with messages of the same variety on the same day. So kind of strategically peppering them with these immunization reminders, proof of residency. As you can see, those are targeted to our specific families who we have stop statuses on. We have enroll now and update final forms messages going out too. And like I said, there will be more to come in future dates. Southeast Messenger ads. I keep on saying Southeast Messenger. It's the Groveport Messenger, right? Okay, I'm sorry about that. Okay, that's what I thought.
People still mainly call it South.
Do they really? Okay.
But they quit distributing to us over here.
When did it become Groveport Messenger?
When
Recently?
They gave up on distributing to like this side and just focused on the town.
I see. So earlier, Board Member Walsh, you mentioned it's important to communicate without internet access to families without internet access. This helps hit the mark. We consistently advertise in the Groveport Messenger both full and half page ads. So that kind of hits the mark there. Physical signage, it's kind of like that Snickers bar at the checkout line. You didn't realize you needed it until you saw it, and now you want it. We try to hit our families as they're driving home, maybe past the school. They weren't thinking about enrolling. They see that yard sign. They're like, I got to take care of that. I completely forgot about that. So those signs actually are effective. And then finally, our back to school mailer, which I think might have hit mailboxes today. If not today, it will be in mailboxes by August 1st. So it'll hit this week. And again, that's another one of those pieces that communicates to our families without internet access, without the use of a mobile device and whatnot. This has all the back to school information we feel they could possibly need all in one shot. And it's nice tactile pages on a booklet. So that's kind of a more detailed snapshot, if you have any questions.
I have a question. When you're doing the immunization reminders, are you suggesting primary one?
Yes, we
And
do
then-
mention primary one. I confirmed with them that they had the TDAP, they had all the,
Okay,
Yes.
and then the other thing is, I've noticed that I don't know why they don't have signage at the end of the road to tell people to come down here, but that is one thing that we definitely need to talk to them about.
yeah,
And then I had a question on the, what was the first slide? The residency, proof of residency.
Mhm.
I have a question on how that process works as far as I've had comments made to me that I did this last year. Why do I have to do it again? And I understand if it's apartment complexes, but if it's, if you own your own home, do you have to do that even if you have lived there for 10 years?
So if here's the interesting part. So if you are the mortgage holder, no, you don't have to. What is happening is if you have, for example, we have a lot of situations where children are now residing with their parents and having their grandchildren there as well. So they're residing there. They don't have a lease. The mortgage is not in their name. They don't have any bills in their name. That's the residency affidavit. And so what they are saying is the parents slash grandparents are saying, yes, my child and my grandchildren reside with me. And that is updated every year. So yes, they are submitting it, but it is because the parent of the child does not have a mortgage or a lease to prove their own residency. So we have to verify that they are still living there. And unfortunately, we do have people that are using that, that have moved out of district. And so that's why we request it every year. And we reminded the families this year, thank you so much for doing this. But please know you're going to have to do this every year. So I've actually, in those situations where they have been doing that for many years, why don't you guys just write up a lease? Let's just do that. And then that way, we have other checks and balances that we can utilize. But if this is a permanent type living situation, just do a lease so that you have something in the parent's name. And we'll work with them on getting that done so that they don't have to submit this every year, because I get it. I mean, if you've been living there for many years, it is kind of a pain to do. But at the same time, I always tell my kids and my staff, rules are in place because at some point somebody has done something that has caused them to be in place, right? And unfortunately, we do have some people that just have not been as honest, which is why, because this is an extension of residency, we do need to verify it every year.
Okay. Thanks. I just wanted clarification.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's tricky, and I get it.
So-
I would be frustrated in that situation too.
And I have a couple experiences to share with you, and then I'll get into questions. So a few doors down from me is one individual home annexed into Columbus because they wanted the water and sewer. And the first generation, I guess Groveport didn't notice, and they graduated getting picked up and dropped off at a home. Eventually, the second or third generation, Groveport got wise, so then they just fraudulently said the neighbor was a guardian, which seems like if you checked into it at all, you would know that's not possible. Then one day, when my property was a swamp underwater, I hear spinning and I go out and there's a car stuck in my yard. And I asked why, and they were racing the bus down Winchester Pike because they had missed their normal drop off, and they weren't even camouflaging it. They told me they don't live in the district, and they were racing the bus, missed the stop, and their kids said, "Hey, the next stop is at your house." So they flat out just told me that's what they were doing. So, I mean, just in my little window, their fraud is pretty rampant, and some of it is really obvious. So, I want to see something, say something. Like the bus drivers
Yes.
have to know, or not, I wouldn't say have to know, but have to be suspicious when they're dropping off at a carpool location, right? And then
Yes.
also, my other question is about the McKinney-Vento
Hmm.
and what check and balance there is there,
Yes.
because I think that can also very easily be abused.
Yes. So, with transportation has been amazing working with my team this year. And bus drivers have done exactly that. They'll let Teresa and Dee know. They'll call me and say, "Hey, all of a sudden this child is being dropped off at the bus stop," and they've always, been walkers and things like that. And so we do have checks and balances in place for that with the McKinney-Vento. So when I started last year, we had 100 and some students that were identified under McKinney-Vento, and part of my past experiences with McKinney-Vento is that you do the re-verifications, which are allowable under law. And so we started doing that last year. And so we ended up down to, it was less than 40 by the end of the year between students with us and students that we were partnering with Columbus on with transportation. So we had dropped that number down significantly because of the re-verification process. We did, as we qualified students this year, I made a point of telling families, I will check in with you every 60 days. And so we would talk on that date. We would set up a time. I put it in my calendar and we would talk again. And just those check ins with them, expanding resource opportunities for them, connecting them to other resources, really helped a lot of families. And so that helped to decrease the number. We just did the re verification for this year in the last week in June, and we are down to 10 families that actually qualify under McKinney-Vento at this point.
So we went from over 100 to 10. So
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So what are we doing to act on fraud?
So that's part, I'll be honest with you, that's part of the reason why we transitioned to the notary documents. Because part of that, I worked with Adam on what the daily rate is. Because under Ohio revised code, you can, there are specific rules on the cost, that it is a misdemeanor. It talks about that you can proceed with legal action with the families. We have not had to do that because the minute that I've determined it's fraud and I've let them know and reminded them of the documents that they have signed, they are withdrawing and going to the district, to the residential district, and we're noting them in our system. But that's something that as we get the residential affidavit documents, we are reminding the families, listen, we are verifying this information. We're verifying all the leases, all of the bills and things like that. And we have the ability to enforce this. So that has helped significantly.
I would just say that for me, it's like we pull over speeders, but we don't ticket. So who cares if they get pulled over for speeding? At some point, I think, and they'll just go and do this to their next favorite district, right? So I think at some point, I mean, just my thinking, at some point, we do need to act on some of these so people know, oh, wow, Groveport has gone from 100 to 10, and they're not letting Johnny get on the bus next door anymore. And as long as we just say, oh, look, we see it, but we don't act on it, I mean,
and we are again working with transportation. They pull our list of stop students. They notify the bus drivers these students are not to get on the bus. We work with obviously our school-based employees to make sure that the students are not attending once we've identified that they are out of district. And we implemented that over the course of this past year, and that made a huge difference. So we are slowly chipping away at it, which is why we started early in the summer and going through all of these things to give people an opportunity to realize, hey, we are on top of this. And we're not just going to let you keep going on the bus and things like that once we've identified that you're out of the district. So I'm hopeful that as we continue to chip away at it, that they will understand that we are verifying these things.
What is the cost to the district of fraudulent students?
It's minimal at this point because we're catching it. I don't have a number because I just know the information from this past year. But as soon as we are identified that there's an irregularity, we have a process that we go through, and then we make sure that they are not attending. So once we find out, we have a process in place to minimize the impact.
Is there a cost associated per student?
I mean, there's a baseline rate. I think it's 30 something a day from this past year
Correct. And
in
again,
foundation.
as soon as she finds them, the student enrollment is a great officer. As soon as she finds them, she kicks them out or tells them they can't come back. So it's hard to say, oh, how much fraud we have out there. We have no idea, but she's done a good job of going through all the students and making sure that if they live here and they go to our school, they go here. If they don't live here, then they don't go to our schools.
But you don't know a daily rate as far as what the fraud, like if you have a student attending, what happens, what does it cost us if we have students attending that don't actually live in the district?
We can go from ODE's cost of a student. I can get that to you guys.
Yeah.
Like what ODE's
Or are we
cost.
also,
We're
I
also
don't want
probably
to say
getting funding.
fraudulently, but are we also?
We're also getting funding also from the state for our kid.
Okay, so explain that to me.
So we're also getting revenue because we're our kids, so we also get the revenue, from that kid. But usually the cost, I'll have to look.
So
at
we
it.
are turning them in and getting reimbursed by
because
the
we don't
state,
know.
even
But as soon
though-
as she knows, we kick them out.
I see.
And just to clarify the other side of this, I know we're talking about the situations where things have been fraudulently done. We want any student who is eligible to go to school here to go to school here. We just want to verify to make sure that they do in fact have the right to do this. If it is a residency affidavit, whether it's a regular lease or mortgage or a McKinney-Vento student, Jamie's talked about a process multiple times. So it's not a one and done, hey, we don't have your lease, you can't go here, you're on stop status and you're out. We go through and make requests and use a time frame, and then if the families haven't provided what they need to provide for us to legally do it, then we cut off the service. So I don't want to we are trying to be good stewards of taxpayer money. As soon as we find out if they're not to be students, and if we know clearly, then we do stop it. But we also are trying to work with families to say that if you have, some families have difficult situations. If it takes you a little bit of time to get the necessary paperwork on a McKinney-Vento status to make sure they can do that. So we try to balance both sides of that.
Absolutely.
Any questions for Ty or Jamie? Before we move on from this topic, if you'll give me a little discretion, I know this isn't exactly back to school, but Carol, if you want to come up. So we've had presentations to the board talking about science of readings and the science of reading and the new materials that we've selected. And I have mixed emotions about this. I've been back and forth on this. Because we have all the new CKLA, which is a science of reading curriculum coming, I talked to cabinet about the possibility of not doing our normal convocation this year. And I'm going to ask Carol to give some numbers, which really kind of hit me why I'm bringing this for a topic tonight. But you talk about like the number and volume of materials that we've just received.
Absolutely. So I've been getting the emails that the materials are being shipped. And I printed off, this is just Asbury, and it's 14 pages of materials, 9 shipments, and 163 line items of materials that is going to be sent to Asbury, all boxed up for teachers to have to get into their classroom and get ready for students on the first day of school. So we talked about how valuable that time is for teachers. You could ask any teacher and they'll always tell you, and I know we have some here, they could never have enough time at the beginning of the year, and especially when we have pallets of materials being delivered to our buildings, the 6 elementaries. And I know teachers want to get their classrooms ready and have them ready for open house as much as possible, and the buildings to have this number of materials and boxes to go through. We just think this time would be so valuable for the teachers to go through and get everything separated on that Monday, August 6th.
So obviously science and reading is state mandated that we had
Yeah.
to do this. We spent this year evaluating. So this isn't, things aren't coming in late because we delayed or didn't follow through. We had the selection, we had the team come present to the board. We ordered those. And again, I also want to clarify that I think there's a lot of value in convocation, bringing everybody together, and we have celebrations and all those sort of things. But I really feel like with the kind of overwhelming amount of new material coming in to give our teachers the best chance possible to help get their room settled and books and other materials organized, that I would like to not do that at least this year. But I know, Latoya, did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, I was to say I definitely support and will offer to volunteer to help set up any of the classes. If there is a teacher that reaches out, may need someone to come in, I'll volunteer and help with this, with the materials coming in to meet state requirements. And then maybe as a board, we can still put together, work with you, Mr. Chai, and your team to maybe put some comms together, a video or a message to our teachers and staff, welcoming them into the year, since we won't do our usual convocation. If the board would be willing to do that, and if that's all right with you all as admin.
Yes.
I think that would be great. And I think, I don't want to speak for the staff, but I think they would appreciate the extra time to do that, but still recognize them and send out, kind of.
I'm laughing because I wrote down volunteers. I'm like, I think we can do this. When are the books actually arriving?
It varies. It's between now and August 6th. They're coming in different shipments.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that we just don't want to send boxes off to classrooms. We want to get the inventory sheets from the company to make certain that a box doesn't get placed aside, or we want to make sure that we're getting everything that we're paying for. And
Is this repeated across all the schools, or is
all elementaries, kindergarten through 5th grade.
So just, I think, Mr. Kirsch, I know for me, I'm saying if there's help with either that, or that way they can focus on that, and I can do a bulletin board or help, I don't know, whatever. I'm tech savvy too, so if there's some way we can help, and I'm pretty sure there's others in the community that if the word was put out, we'd have parents willing to come in and help, and that'd be another way to bring community in as we have this state mandated requirement. It wasn't a lack of piss poor planning, as we say in the military. We did plan accordingly. It is what it is, but we do have a community of folks that want to love on our teachers and help wherever we can.
Yeah, I think the Lions, the Rotary, the you name it. I think some of the church groups would be happy to come out and help with this.
Great.
Yeah, see if human needs would be.
Thank you. And I know the teachers are really going to appreciate this time.
And it could be every year. We'll volunteer every year, just not this year.
I know
since
that.
we're in this crunch, I'm just throwing it out there.
But thank you.
Okay, I just wanted, that was going to be one of my other topics to discuss later, but I thought we were talking about all the back to school stuff. This is kind of a big deal.
Thank you all for your updates as well. On to the treasurer's agenda. Mr. Treasurer, please.
Yep. First item is Treasurer recommends that the Groveport Madison School Board of Education approve the resolution to proceed the bond levy.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have Ms. Grace first. Mr. Bowers second. Well, you'll give some time. Is there any comments or questions or anything else you want to add, Mr. Treasurer?
One thing real quick, and I'll get this out to everybody. We got the final, once it's approved, the final ballot language from the county, because 2 weeks ago we had to do the resolution of necessity, and the county had to certify. We got that back and sent that to the board, and so this is the resolution to proceed. But this time is the final ballot language, or not the ballot language, but the cost per ownership. So if you are 65 and over, and your house is valued at $100,000, 17.3 cents for 100,000. So 17.3 cents for if you're 65 and over, and then anybody else in Groveport at 100,000, our home price would be 23.4 cents. So seniors get a discount through the Franklin County. And
what was that?
It's 17.3 cents for 65 and over on homes ranging from 80,000 to 250,000. Let me put that. And then tax cost dollars for standard home with people under 65 from 80,000 to 250,000 is 23.4 cents.
Is that per day, per year?
Per day. So 17 cents per day. Sorry, per day, and 23 cents per day.
What is it per year?
Per year, I think it is for the first one. It's $85 per year. We'll calculate out pretty sure it's $85, and that's what the board thing says. And then for the 17 cents, it's $63, a little over $63 per year. So I'll get this paper distributed out to you guys.
So are you saying that the ballot language is going to demonstrate this?
Now the ballot language is what it says in here. It just talks about the $85. It doesn't talk about the over.
Okay. I'm like,
it doesn't talk about the over 6. I just got this so I want to share it.
I was hoping we weren't putting 17.3 cents per day on the ballot.
Yeah,
okay.
no. The ballot language said I just got this so I just wanted to share with you guys over 65.
Gotcha.
Is a little cheaper, 17 cents.
Thank you for sharing that, Mr. Treasurer.
Yep.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? And will you also get that to Mr. Ty so it's out for the? Thank you.
Yep.
So I would just like to say when Mr. Fuji just said further work needs to be done. That there were some discussion during our discussion that there were items brought up that some new ideas. Mr. Groove did say if not successful, we scrap it and we make changes. This is not something you can scrap and make changes to. This is set in stone. The information that was brought to us from the committee on the May 5th had the high school having a 753 student addition, had 5 elementary schools and 2 middle schools. 36 people voted on that plan. That was also done in exercise 4 during the committee meetings. And then on exercise 2 during the committee meeting was this new plan, but still this plan had a high school addition of 753. 22 people voted on that, less people than the other plan. So that's the plan that was brought to us, but it was brought to us with a change of 300 addition to the high school. Then, after there was a lot of comments in the public that's not even going to give us enough for what our current population is at the high school, we added, a tech center was added. There wasn't any really discussion on that. That was just done. I don't think this is a good plan for our community. I think more work needs to be done, which is the words of our portrait of a cruiser leader there who is walking us through that. And I would say the square footage we're getting is going to be pretty much the same. In fact, actually, it's a little less for elementary school students and middle school in these new 5 through 8 schools, which would change the grade configuration, and that wasn't even discussed until late in the project. So the community members who were there, they never voted on that. That's really all I have to say on that.
My input is that I don't think that necessarily 700 students in one building, 5th through 8th, makes education better. I don't think it makes it safer. I don't think I'd be, in our current environment, I'd be thrilled with my 5th grader and with the 8th graders. I don't see a benefit to that. I certainly am totally baffled by the idea of 2 middles, well, whatever we're calling them, 2 5 through 8s, so close together with one on No Bixby that almost has to have bus transportation to it instead of having walking distance when we have 2 established middle schools that should simply be remodeled. And to the point, I went to the open classrooms. I know that's not a good situation. And I think we need to build. I just don't think this is the plan. Also, and real important here is just like at the high school, there is no or little room for growth. We're actually giving the kids less square footage per student than what they have now, and we're not taking into consideration future class sizes. So we're boxing ourselves in again, and I think we had an awesome opportunity here. I think we missed some steps, and I think we need to build, but I don't think this is the correct plan for Groveport Madison. I don't think it meets the goals we just discussed. I don't know why the grade configuration came out. I don't know why the school sizes came out the way they did. I think it's going to hurt us in transportation costs, community engagement. I just don't think this is the right fit. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. If I could ask our rep from SHP who's here, I just want to make sure it's clear and on the record, just a few things that has come up from some constituents that I've spoke to about this plan. So, number one, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Number two, in regards to the buildings, and the square footage per person, as Mr. Kirshner mentioned, these were, from my understanding, when we've met and talked about this multiple times about OFCC, and we go back to the high school, that is kind of very frustrating for a lot of people. We wanted more space. However, we were promised one thing, it was in writing and was given to Miss Gray, correct? And in order for us to even take this opportunity, we had to close out that project. Am I
Yeah.
tell me if I'm wrong?
No, you're correct.
We had to close out that project to even be considered for OFCC funding, and that is because unfortunately we do not have the funds to rebuild our own school building. So the state says, hey, I'll help you with these parameters. Correct?
That's
Was there any way with what, and I hear what Ms. Walsh and Mr. Kirshner are saying, and I understand that, but I want to know, is there any way that we could have gotten more space and met the need to still get the state share for this particular bond that we had to turn our letter in by June 12th, which stated that in the event, if you do not move forward, we don't know when you would be eligible again to look at buildings. Am I missing anything? I just want to make sure okay.
No,
So
your statement's correct.
okay, so back to the question of square footage per student. Can you share, are we maxed out based off their criteria to get that state share back?
We are. Yeah, that's correct. And what I would say is that the square footage per student, you have to look at that sort of across the entire building, not just in specific areas. So, for instance, in a number of your elementary school buildings right now, we're using the cafeteria and the gym, right? Same space. In the new buildings, we're getting a separate cafeteria and a separate gymnasium. And so when you look at that across the entire facility, I don't believe you're getting less space. I think you're getting the space that's provided as part of the templates from working with OFCC. And I don't believe that to be less space for your students.
And even like with the high school, I wasn't here. Our board, or I call her our veteran board member, Miss Gray, was here. They fought and tried to get more, and even said that if I heard you correctly in other board meetings, Miss Gray, that when we looked at the projections for students, we thought they were off, and we asked, and they said, no, these are the ones they're going to approve if you want the state share. So it's a take it or leave it kind of situation, which is where we are today. Is that correct?
I would say that I would hope today that we're in a better situation, and the fact that not only are we relying on OFCC's enrollment projection specialist, we're also relying on your third-party enrollment projection specialist who have looked at those enrollment projections in concert, and they believe that they're within a percentage point of what the state projection is showing. So we've got sort of a check and balance here.
Compared to the last plan.
Correct.
In the last plan, we had to use OFCC's person only.
Either way, your plan is based on what OFCC is what their enrollment projection specialist is coming up with. It's just this time we actually had a third party be able to check that and make sure that we were in agreement with it. And so we've all reviewed that. So that's unlike what happened last time.
Yeah. And also in the contract, they agreed that they would look at our enrollment on a yearly basis and modify it, and that was not done, and that's where the issue arose.
But to the point, if you take the current enrollment and you multiply it and you apply it to folks through 8th grade, we're building just like we did. Well, maybe not as bad as the high school, but here we are going to build, and we're not building for 5 or 10% growth. I mean, we're just here's how many we have now, and here's what we're fitting to. And as far as the square footage, it's real simple. You got a middle school that's 85,000 and some odd square foot. You divide it by the capacity that's stated, and you get whatever 150 square foot. Then you do that within the elementary, and you take that and you apply it to the new buildings. And guess what? There is less square footage in the new building than what is claimed on the existing middle schools and elementaries by way of their student capacity and their square footage. So again, if you're building and you're building for the future, this is what we experienced with the high school. It's the same conversation. We're just spinning it, and it's better this time. Look how expensive it is to add for the 300 students versus the 750, but the 300, and now we're just making this monster spend on that building just to get us to where, they barely fit, and who knows if we have lockers for them. Okay, so again, when you're doing this kind of planning, I'm looking for a cushion. I don't want to come back, and I certainly don't want the embarrassment of, hey, we've improved education and now they don't fit again. Oh, we've got more kids coming back, and guess what? We didn't plan for that. I think when you're building, when you're spending this many millions of dollars, you plan for some growth.
And I would like to ask Josh a couple questions. So, did the OFCC say, "Oh no, you can't do a 753 addition to the high school"?
They would not be able to fund that at this time.
Would they fund the part, and then we could fund for an addition to make it so it's the right size?
Yeah. So the way that we were maximizing what money was available from the state was to put the 300 student addition on today, and ultimately in your next segment look at sort of what needs to happen as far as from a career tech standpoint. Now, this is also in conjunction with understanding that you've got students that are over at the 4500 building, and potentially you may have students in programs here at this building if you start to expand your career tech offerings here as well. So we are looking for opportunities to make sure that we have some flexibility in that projection.
But we also have money to play with had we decided to build, like we have now, 2 middle schools instead of adding a third building out in the middle of No Bixby, which anyway, I don't want to get started too heavily on that. But that certainly took a whole pool of funds that we could have applied other ways, correct?
Well, what I would say is that we are trying to prepare the district for what the next 10 years looks like as far as looking at the projection. And ultimately, part of the reason that your team landed on a 5-8 configuration is to be able to pull the 5th grade out of the elementaries to allow for growth in your existing elementaries for the next 10 years. So that strategy came directly from your team. They looked at your existing facilities and said, okay, right now many of our existing elementaries are in modulars, right? We've got kids that are in modular spaces. We'd like to see those students. We'd like to lessen that load at the K5s right now. And so if we build 5-8, we pull a grade out of each one of those buildings and we create some capacity, and we look at the enrollment projections and say, okay, over the next 10 years, the interesting thing that came out of your third party enrollment projection specialist was that there's a wave, right? There's a wave where the elementaries are packed in the first 5 years of the projection, and then it shifts to the middle schools being packed in the last 5 years of the projection. So actually what we're doing is we're building a building today, so a middle school, a 5-8 building, that's going to be, it's going to have capacity the day it opens, and then it's going to start to maximize sort of in years 8, 9, and 10. Now, if your enrollment continues to go up, then in your next segment, you're going to be looking at another improvement there. There might be additions necessary or other things. Or that wave, as we see those students drop down in the elementaries and it starts to do this again, eventually those students, if we don't backfill in the elementary school grades, those middle schools are going to have some capacities in years,
But
10
in the
through 15.
last iteration, it was a middle school for all 1,500 students at one location. So again, you could still do 5 through 8 and still do 2 locations and still be smaller than what you're talking about. Also, all 3 buildings have the same student population, and if you look at the makeup of and where those students are, I don't think that makes sense either. Why would Groveport be the same size as these other two? So again, I think, I mean, I appreciate the effort. I just think we did not fire on all cylinders, and we missed a better configuration for the students and the taxpayers and everybody.
Well, thank everyone for their comments. I appreciate you, sir, for always explaining that information and ensuring we have that. Is there anything else? If not, we can move forward with roll call at this time. Okay. All right, Mr. Treasurer, if we could have roll call, please.
Ms. Dauberberger.
Aye.
Mr. Bauer.
Aye.
Ms. Gray.
Aye.
Mr. Kirschner.
No.
And Ms. Walsh.
No.
Motion passes. On back to you, Mr. Treasurer.
Yep. The next thing I have is just a discussion item. It's the administrator salary structure in the pickup. Just so you guys can look at it, and then we'll get approved at the next meeting. The salaries you guys have already approved. The stuff we're looking at is just the positions. And we had a couple of changes. Director of Special Projects went in with the Director of Diversity Engagement Human Capital. And then Assistant Treasurer moved up from pay grade 4 to 5 just to go with the Assistant Principals at the high school. And then we added the 2 curriculum coordinators and the Human Relations Specialists that you guys already hired. They went to pay grade 3. So the salaries don't change on minimum maximum here. Those have already been approved, but it's just the names of the Director of Special Projects, and then we added the curriculum coordinators, 2 of them, and then the Human Relations Specialist at the last board meeting. I think the previous one went into category 3 or pay grade 3. That was vacant, but those 3 went into there. So that's just a discussion now. This will be brought to the next board meeting for action.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any questions for our treasurer or comments?
Okay. Number 3, Nate's still here. Thanks, Nate. Because this is all tech stuff, but this is E-rate project, and we need an action item today. We get back, so this is a bunch of servers, and you can actually look at the detail of this. If you go into the actual content, if you really want to be techie, and I'm not, I'm sorry, Nate, but it talks about the Rubin networking, everything we're buying. The bottom line is $323,000, but we only pay 20% of it. So, because we get your refunding. So our cost on that's going to be $64,000-ish. But how this works is we pay for it now, we get a work approval tonight, we pay for it, we get everything in within the next probably couple weeks. We implement it, and then later in the year they'll give us back 80% of that amount. So I'm just coming to you before the board to get approval to do that, which, I mean, honestly, getting all the stuff for 20% is a nice deal. Maybe I don't need it.
Any questions or comments for our IT director?
Libby's looking at me like she's been through this before.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
And I need a motion.
Oh, yeah. You asked
Can you
for
read the
questions.
motion? Can you read the
Yeah,
motion, Mr. Treasurer?
The treasurer recommends that the Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education approve the E-rate project to replace and upgrade our Wi-Fi district-wide. 80% of the amount will be reimbursed to the district as part of the E-rate funding.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Ms. Gray is first, Mr. Bowers second.
So, yeah, question, did this go out to bid?
Did this go out to bid?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
And how did these people rate? Were they low bidder, or how did that go?
So the E-rate process requires that we put out a Form 470 that we have a consultant that helps us do that with. And they rated low on price and high on previous relationships.
Awesome, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any additional comments or questions at this time? Or we can have roll call, Mr. Treasurer, please.
Mrs. Dauberberger?
Aye.
Mr. Bauer?
Aye.
Ms. Gray?
Aye.
Mr. Kirschner?
Aye.
And Ms. Walsh?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Superintendent recommends the Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education approve the consent agenda according to the recommended actions.
So moved.
Second.
Right, I have Ms. Grace first, Mr. Bowers second. Any comments or questions at this time?
Yes, I would like, the transportation moved out. Hold on a minute.
There's only one, two,
Payment
three.
link.
Let me get it. The payment link.
Number 4.
Number 4. Number 5. Just move everything out. I want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all moved out. Just move them all out.
Okay.
6 as well.
Thank
Number
you.
6 as well.
2 through,
2 through 6.
thank you.
All right.
Okay. First item is superintendent recommends the Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education approve the following certificated personnel items as outlined in the file attachment.
I so move.
Second.
Roll call, Mr. Treasurer.
I have a question.
Or you have a question? I'm sorry, I paused.
Did you have something to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to know, does everybody have their licensure on this? It looks like one person might not. Is that all of them? And is the non-degree position, is that construction position, how many, applications did we get for that position?
Mr. Tracy, we come to the
Two?
mic, please.
I saw two.
That's not
Two.
sorry. I believe it was 2, but I can actually check it for you online.
No, that's okay, just two.
Sure.
That's good.
No
Yes,
problem.
ma'am. That's good. Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions or comments from the board?
No.
Okay, hearing none or seeing any. We got roll call, Mr. Treasurer.
Mrs. Dowdleberger,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Kirschner,
No.
and Ms. Walsh.
No.
Motion passes.
The superintendent recommends the Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education approve the following non-certificated personnel items as outlined in the file attachment.
So moved.
Second.
And Ms. Gray and Mr. Bauer, Ms. Gray's first, Mr. Bauer second. Are there any comments or questions from the board?
No, no questions.
All right, thank you. Hearing none and seeing none at this time. If we could have roll call, Mr. Treasurer, please.
Mrs. Dowdleberger,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Kirschner,
Aye.
and Ms. Walsh.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Superintendent recommends the Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education approve payment in lieu for the transportation reimbursement. The Ohio law allows for public school districts to determine the impracticality of transporting resident students attending schools not located within the district after consideration of a number of factors. Upon that determination, the school district is permitted to offer payment in lieu of transportation to the parent or guardian. The Transportation Department has completed these studies and resides in the affected residents in the affected areas will be offered payment in lieu for the 2023-2024 school year. The initial list of families being offered payment in lieu of transportation is attached as an executive content since it lists students' names.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have Ms. Gray first, Mr. Bauer second. Are there any questions and comments from the
Yeah,
board at this time?
Just for my knowledge, where is Columbus Arts Tech? Do we know? That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Off of Kimberly Parkway.
The answer, just for those that are listening, that school is located off of Kimberly Parkway.
Okay. Have we transported to these schools before? Yes, I know the answer because I know the students who've gone there. Thank you. That's all I have.
I just want to confirm that this is for 23-24. So the school there that's already passed.
No, that is a typographical. This is for the upcoming year. This is 24-25.
Okay.
So, did you read it correctly?
No, I think I read it incorrectly. I think I read it as written.
It's not, that isn't.
Can we either rescind or vote it down and redo it?
We could just restate the motion.
Okay. Yes.
Would you like me to read the full motion again? Or
I'm good with just revising that last sentence.
That last sentence. Yeah, the Transportation Department has completed.
yes, the full recommended action is the same with the exception of this is for the 2024-2025 school year, not 2023-2024 as I'd stated and as was written in the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
So we got that correction. Thank you so much, Mr. Superintendent. Are there any additional questions or comments on this particular, on item 4 of our consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, seeing none. If we could have roll call, Mr. Treasurer.
Mrs. Dottleberger,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Kirschner,
Aye.
and Ms. Walsh.
No.
Motion passes.
Superintendent recommends the Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education approve the main student transportation contract for the 2024-2025 school year.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have Ms. Gray first, Mr. Bauer second. Are there any questions from the board at this time? Or if you have something to add, Mr. Superintendent?
This is a new contract. We have not contracted with them before. Is that
No,
correct?
we've used them for 5 years.
Okay.
This is kind of a one-off contract when for students with particular needs.
It's a one-off if we need them.
And we've been using them since they were in existence. They're a ODE approved contracted service.
So we have quite a few transportation companies. Is there any way to consolidate that, or is that giving us a better bang for our buck having options?
So we always try to transport in-house first, and if we can't transport in-house first, we go with other companies. Different companies have different services they provide. Sometimes it might be a location, sometimes it might be whether there needs to be medical attention along. Sometimes it might need to be the type of vehicle provided. And again, this is one that I think we use anywhere from 1 to 3 students a year as needed. So it's one of the tools in the toolbox to be able to provide the transportation for students. But we always look to do it internally first, and then we have to take other considerations to meet the student need. And they've met that need for us in the past.
Thank you.
Any additional comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, seeing none. If we could have roll call, Mr. Treasurer.
Mrs. Dottleberger,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Kirschner,
Aye.
and Ms. Walsh.
Aye.
Motion passes.
The superintendent recommends Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education to authorize the treasurer to join the Ohio Purchasing Council.
So moved.
Second.
This is a cooperative purchasing group. There's no cost to us, but we have to join it to be able to take advantage of the membership benefits.
Any questions or comments from the board?
I think you just answered my questions. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right, if we could have roll call, Mr. Treasurer.
Mrs. Dottleberger,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Mrs. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Kirschner,
Aye.
Ms. Walsh.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. On to comments, announcements, and other business.
1 second. I'm sorry.
Sorry, wait, did you second that? Was you the one
Yes.
that seconded that? Okay,
Yes,
sorry.
thank you.
Yes, I make sure.
My apologies. Could we add to the next board meeting a follow-up on the enrollment fraud best practices, please?
Any additional comments, announcements?
Groveport Madison Human Needs is doing a school supply distribution. It is Sunday, August 4th from 1 to 3 p.m. at Middle School North.
Awesome. Thank you all.
My biggest topic we already discussed is waiving convocation this year, and I appreciate your support in doing that. I know the staff will appreciate the extra time. This is a stressful time of year for families, but it's also a really fun time of year. All the excitement and there's of course nervousness that everything's gonna work the way it needs to go. I'll make sure we're pushing out those details. We have back to school and ice cream socials and different things like that. So if you can stop by any of those, it's a great time. Again, families are excited and nervous all at once, whether you're going to a new grade level or first time at school. So we want to provide as many friendly faces to greet them as we can.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, on to adjournment.
I make the motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All right, Mr. Kirshner, Mr. Bauer. We got roll call, Mr. Treasurer.
Mrs. Dottleberger,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Kirschner,
Aye.
and Ms. Walsh.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, the time is 9:53 p.m. This meeting's adjourned.